We are back with another episode of the Risk Takers Only podcast. I'm your host, Mike Upshire. You're tuning in to episode 5. Guys, this is the podcast to get you motivated, inspire you, just push you a little bit over the edge to get you taking that risk and get you closer to your financial goals. Man, it's been an awesome last couple weeks. Last week, I want to tell you, I went to the Magic games. You know, I love my Magic, and my Magic is looking good in that 4th spot, baby. So I usually do Kia Center events. I usually host a kind of like a founder suite event, and I do it for investors, partners, potential investors. And this time around, I invited all my family. I'm talking about my brother, my sisters, my mom and dad, my mother-in-law, father-in-law, my brother-in-laws, their family. I even invited some of the agents that we have in our brokerage. And, it was just a good time. It was actually the first time that I've ever been able to sit in that type of suite. We had a founder suite, and it was the first time I ever got a chance to sit in the actual suite and watch the game. Because normally when I rent the suites out, I'm normally, networking, talking to this person, working the room. And so I don't even get a chance to eat at times. This time I got a chance to eat, got a chance to watch the game, got a chance to just enjoy family. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this is because this entire podcast and what even we're going to be talking about today is for you guys to be able to do things like that. It doesn't matter if you guys don't like basketball. The memories I was able to create for my family being there is priceless. That was my mom's first time being in a suite like that, being in a suite at all, I think. I brought my son and my daughters for the first time. They're 8, 7, and 5. That was their first time even seeing a basketball game. And it was something that, we always wanted to do, but we just never really got around to it. And we have season tickets. And so just creating the memories for the family. And because I put in the work, me and my wife, we put in the work, we put in the time, we put in the effort, the blood, the sweat, the tears. We took the risk. We were able to do something for our family that probably they would never be in again. They would never probably get in a suite like that again. And so it just goes to show you, like I said, that is my why. Why do I do this? The podcast, the brokerage, just working so hard. Why do we do this? It's because I want to make sure my family has a better life, be able to experience the things that most don't be able to, or don't get a chance to experience. And so it was awesome. We had an awesome time, and my Magic got the W. Actually, did we lose? I don't know if we lost or not. You might have to cut that out. I don't know. If we lost, just cut it out. If we did win, keep it, all right? But today, we have an awesome episode for you guys today. I have been hitting you guys with knowledge, particularly in the freight brokerage business. And I want to continue to give you guys game, give you guys another resource to be able to escape the rat race, start betting on yourself, and start planning for your future and reaching your financial goals again. And so today I'm going to be giving you my blueprint to making $250,000 as a freight broker, freight agent. All right. And so it's my personal blueprint. Like I said, last year, me and my team alone, we did $285,000. That's net in revenue. That's year 2, right? And again, I'm going to give you the blueprint on how to do that. And so what we're going to be going over today, I just want you guys to make sure if you got anything you got going on, you got the music playing, the kids asking for food, you're doing your homework. I want you to just stop what you're doing right now. Grab a pen, grab a pencil, grab a little notepad, and let's get ready to get to work. All right. If you guys aren't already, follow the link below. I want you guys to tune in to this podcast. If you have not already, subscribe, leave me a comment, give me some feedback. This is all specifically for you guys. I want to bring you industries that I'm in, industries my partners are in, industries in that people that I know in my network that are successful that you guys can jump into and start making bank, making money, crazy money to be able to live your life, man. Live the goals that you want. If you want to ride on a jet, if you want to own a jet, if you want to charter a yacht, if you want to travel to the Maldives, whatever it is that you have as far as your financial goals, it starts right here. So I advise you guys to tune in because, again, we're going to go over my hand-picked personal blueprint to making $250,000 as a freight agent. Okay. So the points we're going to be covering today. First, we're going to be talking about setting your revenue goals. We're going to talk about setting your revenue goals. We're going to be talking about selecting your brokerage. We're going to talk about finding your customers. We are going to discuss building your carrier network. We're going to be talking about maximizing your margins in business. And we're going to end with actually scaling your business for growth. All right. And so we got a great episode. All right. I'm looking forward to it. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing I want to talk about the $250,000 goal. It's like, why do you keep hearing me say that? Because I didn't even make $250K last year. I just want to say by the record, $284,000. Just letting you guys know. But why do I keep talking about the goal? You hear this saying thrown out a lot, and if you haven't, you're going to hear it now. $250,000 is the new $100,000. And the reason why is $100,000 is no longer gives you the financial security, that we thought that we once had, when the goal was $100,000. It doesn't give you the comfort or the standard of living that we need, that we want. And you talking about with inflation, cost of living, income disparities, all of that has played a big part. You're talking about inflation. Now, the cost of goods, you can go, we were just laughing, me and my wife. I remember when I used to go to the corner store, and I'm from Chicago, and I'm born in the 90s. I'm a 1990s baby. So just let you know, I'm not old. But back in the day in Chicago, I can go to the store and I can buy a bag of chips for $25, 25 cents. If it was $25, they was robbing me. Okay. But back in the day in Chicago, I can go to the store. I can buy a bag of chips for 25 cents, maybe even 50 cents if I ask them to put a little cheese on the top of the chips. You all know about that. But now you go to that same store and you go for that same bag of chips, and that bag of chips is 4 times, it's a 400% markup on those bag of chips. You're talking about $1 plus, the same price that you would see in a vending machine. And so you got to realize, guys, it's just not a bag of chips. You're talking about everything. The rates are higher right now. You're talking about getting a home. The rates are higher. Just overall, all your goods are more costly. So you cannot think you're going to make that same $100,000 and it's going to mean the same and it's going to do the same justice as it did years past. We're talking also about the cost of living. I don't know if you guys have noticed, whether you're buying a home or renting, it is way more expensive. Before, we used to make a little joke. We're talking about in New York, you would pay $2,000-$3,000 for a little box. And here in Florida, that $2,000-$3,000 probably is going to get you a little box. And so, again, you have no other choice. It's either you're going to get phased out or you have to increase your earnings. You have to increase your value in the marketplace. And so also we're talking about the income disparities. This has got to be one of the biggest things that I've noticed. So we have a school here called Masters Academy. And so my kids, they go to public school right now. Me and my wife, we were contemplating if we were going to do private school. The things that they're teaching in today's school, especially public school, is just not adding up to the values we're teaching in our household. And so we were thinking of doing private school, but then there's a school called Masters Academy. It's a private school here. And so we signed up and we're in the waiting list, let's just say right now. And I have 3 kids. For those 3 to go to Masters Academy, this is without any scholarship or anything, it's $50,000. It's $50,000. So you're talking about, in order to have quality education, even quality healthcare, you're going to have to increase your earnings. The households with a lower income, they won't have the same healthcare that you have. So they don't get the same treatment when they go to the doctors or the hospital. You're talking about the education. Come on. Like, even there's right now, guys, what I've just been learning right now with my wealth, there are social clubs that I will never bump into any of you guys in, because those social clubs have a threshold to get in. You're talking about $10, $20, $30,000 just to get into those social clubs. And what happens there? Deals. People with high wealth. You hear stories that you've never heard before. You get invited to events and to deals that you would never be able to participate in. And again, it's because it's a wealth gap. It's a wealth gap. And so today, guys, we're going to be talking about, again, the new $100,000, $250,000, right? And so we're going to be, like I said, I want to emphasize setting the goals too today. that's what we're going to start on. And I want to emphasize setting the goal. I know it's kind of cliche when you say, hey, set a goal, but I want to remind you guys, a goal is just a dream until you guys actually put actionable steps that you can create habits to get to that goal. I'm going to repeat that. A goal is just a dream, guys, until you actually start putting habits, change some habits that you have, and put some actionable steps to accomplish that goal. For me, when you're putting goals down, there are a couple of points that I want to have you guys, that I want to make with you guys. And I hope you guys got a pen and pencil. I want you to write this down. So when you have goals, there's a couple of things that they do for me, and I jot down everything. If you talk to my wife, I have notebooks stacked on top of notebooks, and they're all in the closet, because I will go back and I will reflect. I love looking at 2021, looking at what I was learning in 2021 versus my notebook from 2024, right? It's all different, and you see the growth. And so for me, goals give you clarity. It gives you clarity. You understand where you're going, where you're headed, what you need to do next. Especially in this day and age, there's a lot of shiny objects. There's a lot of, social media is open on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can tune on and watch someone. It looks like they're just an overnight success. And you're like, okay, that's the next shiny object that's going to get me to my financial goal. And it's not. It is not. And so it gives you clarity to be able to continuously understand where you're at, where you need to be. You're very clear on your goals and your visions. I'm talking about it gives you measurability. So you can measure your growth. Like I was just telling you, knowing my goals, I can look at my goals now, and I can look at notebooks that I told you I used to write in 2021. And I can see, okay, I've learned systems and processes. So before in 2021, I did not know anything about maybe systems and processes, let's just say. Now I have it dialed in to the point where everything is documented. My whole team and my whole staff know what's going to happen here. It's kind of like a door. Whenever I want to pull back or turn it up, I can kind of turn that knob, because there's systems and processes and procedures for every single thing. And so measurability, I'm talking about accountability. Accountability is one of the biggest ones. Accountability, kind of breaks down the goals into, accountability for me. Let me just say, when you have the goals and you have step by step and you have it on paper, now you can hold yourself accountable to, if you said, hey, you're going to make 50 calls this day, these days, to be able to get you closer to getting your next shipper or your next customer, and you didn't do that, why you're failing. You can't go back and say, oh, it didn't work. It's not for me. It isn't for you because you're lazy. But when you put goals down and you actually strive to achieve those goals and you hold yourself accountable, that is the best thing. And that's the goals right now. Before we even start, you need to know why you're doing this, How much are you looking to make? Some of you guys and everyone here is different. For me, my goals are different. For you right now, we're going to start with $250,000. So guys, let's jump into it. All right. So, like I said, we're going to set a goal off of $250,000, and we're going to be talking about the freight agency model. All right. And so we'll break that down a little bit later. And so when you first get started, this is how we're going to work it out. So you're talking about making $250,000. And so as a freight agent, you have to realize that your broker is going to take a percentage of your business. And so you won't know that, obviously, until you sign up with your broker. But typically, you want to be no less than a 70% split, meaning you get 70, your broker gets 30%. I've seen it go down from 50-50 splits. I've seen it go all the way up to people getting 90-10. And that, obviously, they're doing something good for their broker to get 90%. And so, again, we're going to talk about, let's just say, a 70-30 split. The broker or the agent gets 70%, the broker gets 30%. And we're going to base it off of that. So for me, in order for me to be able to make $250,000 net, I would have to make $357,000 plus. And so if you do the math, again, $357,000, if you multiply that by 70%, which is what you as the agent will receive from the broker, that is right at $250,000. And so now we can kind of break it down. Okay, so based off of $357,000, that is how much I need to do overall, right, in revenue. And so we're going to break it down. So we're going to start by making it simple for you, right? Starting out the gate, we're going to do everything by $100 margins. You'll understand more what the margins mean sooner. when we get into the deeper into this, training. But we're going to start off everything with $100 margins. So if you need to make $357,000 and you make $100 per load, you can clearly take $357,000 and divide it by 100. And what you're going to get is 3,571. That's the amount of loads you would have to move at $100 margin for the year. So I know we're getting into the numbers. This is the stuff that's going to make you the money. So don't fall asleep on me. All right? So you're at 3,571 loads that you will need to move for the year. We're going to break it all the way down. So by a month, it's 298 loads that you need to move on a monthly basis. So 3,571 for the year, 298 for the month. We're going to further break it down to weekly. That is 75 loads a week. We're not going to stop there. We're going to break it down daily. That's 15 loads a day. Whoa, 15 loads. Did it sound scary? You were scared. You were about to turn it off, weren't you? When I said 3,000 something, you're up. He done lost me. I don't even know, 3,000. Listen, the reason why we break it down is because we have to really envision us being able to do this. It is not hard, but we have to know where we're headed. We got to know what our targets are at so we can hold ourselves accountable. Are you guys going to get 15 loads a day right off the bat? No. Negatorino. No, you're not. But we know if I start off with one, I know, okay, cool, I'm able to get one a day. Now I know how much more do I need? Easy math. 14 now. I get 2 more. Now I'm doing 3 a day. Now I need 12. And so that's how we're going to measure how we continuously increase in our growth. But we broke it down. So 3,571 loads we would need at $100 margin to make $357,000. And after we get our 70%, which is the split from the broker, we're a broker's agent. So after we get our split, we make $250,000 net. And that is the blueprint, guys. So now our goal, we need 15 loads a day at a minimum of $100 margin. We do not go under 100. Every load we move is $100 margin. That is our focus. That is what we do, right? And so now, how do we get those 15 loads to start moving? And so now we understand our target. We know, okay, in order to get this, this $250,000, I have to do 15 loads, $100 per load. Now, I'm going to go find my customer. Wait, first, you have to find your brokerage. So we're going to talk a little bit about finding the brokers. Now, this is the blueprint, guys. This is exactly what I did. When I first got started, I knew, okay, minimum, we have to do $250,000. My wife was controlling the business, and I know, okay, if she's going to spend her time and effort, once we still have the kids, the household to run, minimum, we have to make $250,000 or more and be able to scale to higher levels, right? So finding your brokerage, this is going to be key for you guys. So as an agent, and I've gotten this question a lot, how do you identify your brokerage that you're going to work under? Okay, so I got you here. So factors to consider. If you haven't got your pen, this is the time now. Wink, wink. Factors to consider when looking for your brokerage to partner with. So first off, we're going to talk about non-competes. In this world of transportation and logistics, specifically under the brokerage realm, brokers are known to have you sign crazy non-competes, meaning that you bring in books of business that you've called, you cultivate the relationships, you move the freight, and let's just say 2 or 3 years go by and you're ready to leave, and let's just say you're ready to do your own thing, start your own brokerage, or go to a new brokerage, or do consulting. Those non-competes tie you down where you are strictly a worker for them. And if you don't work for them, they're taking your book of business. They're blackballing you. They're suing you if they find out that you're working with someone else. And so for me, one of the things is I wanted to make sure that the brokers that I worked under, they didn't have any crazy non-competes. They let me be me. They let me flow. They weren't worried about me leaving because they're going to treat me so good to keep me to stay. And so that's another little trick. If you watch brokerages that offer those crazy non-competes, it's something that they're not doing where they're worried about you leaving and just causing all havoc and hell. And so non-compete. So number 2, we're going to focus on the commission structure and compensation. That's what we were talking about, the splits. So minimum, guys, minimum, you are looking at 70%. You need to make 70%. If anything under that, bye, on to the next. And I don't care if you do not have a book of business already built. If the broker does not have a 70% split or more for you, on to the next. All right. The next is also too, you're talking about commission structure and the compensation. When are you paid? How are you paid? Me, I'm paid every week. So whatever I do from Monday through Wednesday, as long as as long as the load has been delivered, the proof of delivery paperwork has been sent to them and filed correctly, and there's no claims, I know I'm going to get paid that on Friday. I know on Thursday they're going to send me a commission report, and that commission report, I check it, make sure everything is good, and then on Friday, I'm paid. I'm compensated. That's the agent is compensated, right? And so you need to make sure your compensation is fits you. I love getting checks weekly. I don't want to wait 2 weeks. I don't need to wait 2 weeks. And so if that's you don't mind waiting 2 weeks, and the broker says, hey, we do, a week in the arrears, 2 weeks in the arrears, that's okay for you. For me, again, I wanted to make sure I was paid weekly. So 70% or higher split, getting paid weekly, none of those little, conniving non-competes. And just letting you know, MZM Transports, by the way, my agency, we are hiring. We're hiring for admin roles, broker, and sales, and we do not have any non-competes, baby. I know you work for us. You ain't going to want to leave. I'm trusting you. Trust me on that. Okay. Credit score. Credit score. This is one of the biggest things. Your broker has a credit score, meaning that the credit score represents how they pay. Customers alike, they all contribute to that credit score. And so your broker's credit score that you're targeting needs to be a 95 or higher. And it needs to be a 95 or higher, not just because you want to know that they pay and they're good at what they do and all that, but also when you're dealing with carriers and even customers, they're going to see that. And most of them, they want to work with someone who has a high credit score that's known to do good business, And so 95 or higher is the credit score that you're looking for your broker to have. Also, they need to be in business 2 years or more. They need to be in business again 2 years or more. The reason why, a lot of customers and a lot of carriers, they're not going to want to work with a new broker. That broker is not proven. And if they believe that broker is so new that they may run a chance of not getting paid or the load may not be delivered to the standards that they want, you're done. You don't have a business. And I've saw countless times carriers will tell me, hey, I'm not working for that company. I don't care how much money they offer me. They're new. And I can see why. I had a situation, guys. Let me tell you a situation. There was a customer that we had. The customer was, I think the customer was about 2 years, maybe 3 years old. And the customer, they were very slow at paying. They were very slow at paying, and it became a point where our brokerage was kind of letting me know that they had not been paying. And so how it works in logistics, guys, when we have a shipper or a manufacturer, which is our customer, and they give us loads to move or freight to move, the margins that we make, the broker pays us, but then also the broker has to pay the driver as well. And how does the broker get paid? Some brokers, get paid through a factoring company, and what the factoring company does is basically front the money based off of the invoice that the customer has that the broker has with the customer. And so if the customer is not paying, and the broker has to pay out to the agent, which is me, and to the truck driver, it kind of leaves the broker in a bad predicament. And that's what happened with one of these shippers. They were open for 2 years, and they just went out of business. And so for them, they would have a negative credit rating because they were paying so late. They were paying, usually you do like what's called a net 30. You pay within 30 days. But these guys are over 120 days past due, and that contributes towards your credit rating. So if you think about a broker having a negative credit rating, a bad credit rating, a carrier or a customer would not want to work with that broker because it's simple. They're not going to pay. That's bad business, and it's going to ruin the supply chain for the customer and even the carrier. And so brokers need to have a 95 or higher credit score. They need to be in business 2 years or more. 2 years shows that they're proven. More people want to be able to do business with you once you've been in 2 years. It's even like that in the banking world. They say when you're looking for a loan, you need to be in business 2 years. All right. So just know that. And then last but not least, we're talking about the technology and the tools. So for me, the technology that we look for and that we want load board access. What are the load boards? DAT and internet truck stop. Those are the two main ones that you need. DAT and internet truck stop. Those are the two biggest load boards. The technology and tools that your broker has to offer you is going to allow you to be more efficient on the phone, do your job better. And so DAT, internet truck stop, those are load boards that when I'm looking at a broker, they better be able to offer me that. And if not both, at least one, right? TMS systems, which TMS stands for Transportation Management Software. And that is going to be the one where you organizes your loads, your shipments, the carriers, the pickups, the rate cons, PODs, all of that good stuff. And so they have to offer some type of a TMS system that actually allows you to scale and be efficient. The one we use right now is called Aljax. Aljax is one of the top. It's called Aljax. You guys may also know it as I think it's like Descartes or something like that. I know I butchered that name, so we're just gonna go by Aljax. But Aljax is one of the top TMS softwares, and what that does is allow us to be very efficient when you're talking about sending out a rate con, which the rate con is like the digital agreement between you and the carrier. And it basically says, hey, this is the load, this is the commodity, this is the time for pickup, where it's going to be delivered at, special equipment, the rate, all of that good stuff on that agreement. And then the carrier basically signs that and says, hey, I agree to taking this load. You can either do it manually or DeSantis, Aljax, we just plug and play the information and it prints it out for us. It sends it out for us. And so a good TMS system is going to be needed. And then I would say a good rate comparison system to be able to use rates. You can always use DAT and internet truck stop to be able to give quotes and check rates. I will also say Trucker Tools. Trucker Tools is another good tool to have. And so you want to know what type of technology comes with that broker. Are they just going to say, okay, there you go, figure it out yourself? Or are they going to give you some type of tools to be able to make life easier for you? All right. So now we got our goals down. $250,000. How many loads a day? 15. At what margin? $100 margin, right? To reach that $250,000 net. We got that down. Check that off the box, right? Finding your brokerage. We have that down. We know where we're going. We know what type of information we need before we start with that broker. And so we know all the goodies that they're going to give us. And so now you have the broker. You successfully talk to the broker. And I'll tell you guys this too. Starting out, don't get discouraged. There's going to be a lot of brokers that are not going to want to work with you because you have no book of business. That's okay. One of the biggest things that I'm going to tell you in tips when you're talking to brokers, you have to sell yourself. When I first got started, I'm working with the Fortune 500 broker, and I did not have a book of business. And so little things like if you've worked with a transportation company in the past, if you've had any logistics experience, driving trucks, anything that has to do with logistics, transportation, sell yourself. They don't mind working with you and paying for some of the load boards, the TMS softwares, and all those things. They don't mind doing that, especially if they feel like, okay, this person is going to bust their ass and they're going to bring us business. And so, again, right away, don't get discouraged. A lot of brokers you're going to hear, they're going to want you to have a book of business. That's okay. You need to sell yourself and let them know, hey, listen, I'm going to be making calls day in and day out. I'm come from this industry. I have a lot of relationships, and it's only a matter of a few weeks to a month that I'm going to have a shipper for you. All right. And so just wanted to let you guys know, I don't want you to get discouraged in that angle. Okay. So now we identified the broker. Now we have to find the customer because like I just told you, they want you to have a book of business. They're not going to pay for the licensing, the bond, the insurance, the technology. They're not doing all that for free. Again, they get a split of what you do, but you can't do anything unless you have a customer. And so now we're going to talk about finding the customers. All right. So we're going to talk about finding your customers. So we're going to start by identifying the target market and your niche. And we're identifying these because we need to figure out where we can add the most value. Again, when you're adding value, that automatically means, again, you're solving problems. And when you're solving problems, your value increases in the marketplace. That means you get paid more and more dollars come to you. You attract more dollars, baby. And so don't worry so much about making the money. Focus on adding value. You add value, the money's going to come right behind. So just give you a little tip, guys. So right off the bat, when I first got started, and I had a little helping hand, I had a mentor. And so our main focus was targeting raw goods. When you talking about the market, like what area, I didn't have any area because I didn't have any customers. I didn't have any carriers. And so what I started to target, for my list of shippers and manufacturers was raw goods. And when I say raw goods, I'm speaking of mulch, soil, brick, block, lumber, steel. Those are all goods that are broken down to its finest. And for instance, if you have steel needs to still be used, whether it's for a home, whatever you're building. And so when you're talking about a raw goods really are, how do you say it? They're shit. They're literally, they don't pay the most, like produce or government contracts, or there's an assortment of other commodities. Actually, I'm going to let you guys know of this. I want to let you guys know. We're going to go over a couple of the commodities or different freights you can target. So we talked about mulch and soil. We're going to talk about chemical products, measuring tape, plastics and rubber, wood products, pulp, paper, paperboard, printed products, textile and leather products, metal and basic shapes, machinery, electronics, furniture, waste and scrap, steel and sugar, salt, sulfur, plaster, cement, beverages, produce, mineral fuels, iron, apparel, plants, kitchen equipment, plastic containers, packaging materials, dry ice, poultry, food, loadout trailers, tires, batteries, coffee, coke, glass, meat, pallets, roofing materials, paint. These are all goods that you guys can move. And so when you say, hey, there's no business out there, there is business everywhere in your face. But what we're going to target, and this is my humble opinion, again, that helped me scale to what I've scaled to 284,000 plus year 2, is we targeted raw goods. We simply targeted raw goods because everyone is looking over it. Everyone wants that new shiny object. Again, it's 2024. When someone says, hey, you can move government contracts. Now everyone's like, oh, government contracts. What we move is literally shit. And it's shit. It's mulch. But the mulch and the soil, everyone looks over. The brick, the block, the steel, the lumber. People look over that. The margins are small on that. Remember what I just told you guys. We're only targeting $100 right off the bat. So the margins are smaller on those type of goods and commodities versus, like I said, produce or government contracts or electronics or heavy haul, something of that nature, right? And so starting off the bat, like I said, okay, we got our niche. We're going to focus on raw goods, specifically mulch, soil, steel, lumber, right? That's what our focus is. And so now, let's zone back in. We know what our goals are. We got our brokerage backing us up. They're giving us the technology to make it happen. Now we're going to start finding our customers. We know our customers that we want. We want customers that produce and manufacture and ship mulch, soil, brick, block, steel, lumber. So we know that. Boom. Now the next thing is, how are we going to find the leads? How do we get the leads? If we want to market to them, where do we find them? So I'm going to give you my 2 methods. I'm going to get rid of all the fluff because there's so much stuff out there telling you what to do. People are going to tell you need to start posting 3 times a day, build your brand. You need to go to every single trucking and transportation event. You need to network and go to every single event locally in your area and network. You need to start going in person and dressing up and visiting the shippers locally. I've heard it all. And these 2 methods are what has been tried and true for me that have immediately impacted and affected my bottom line, which is Google and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Google and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Those have been my primary 2 sources of finding my customers. The other source has been referrals. I've never went to an event. I've never went to any type of networking event that has to do with transportation. I've never door knocked a shipper before. That it doesn't affect my bottom line that much as making some calls and using Google, And so primarily we're going to find the leads. We're going to use Google. Google's a free method. You don't have to pay for it. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, that's a paid method. It's paid on a monthly basis. I believe it is $99 a month. That's what I pay. And so easy $99 a month to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. If you don't have that, we can go with the Google method for free. If you do have the $99, you got the best of both worlds. All right. So boom. So how we're going to start marketing to the leads that you find. What we're going to do as far as finding them when you're talking about using Google. So now picture this. Find out where the top mulch and soil manufacturers are. Let's find out where the top brick and block manufacturers are. And that is simple as typing in this information in Google. You can even type it in Chat GPT. Type that information in and it's going to start telling you the areas, whether it's the cities or states. And so let's just use Florida for an example, right? Florida is one of the biggest manufacturers of mulch and soil. And so why? Well, because Florida's year round. A lot of times you're using mulch and soil outside, and Florida has awesome weather. I'm just telling my Chicago family that deals with the snow. Florida has awesome weather. And so mulch is prevalent year round for Florida. And so there are some of the leading manufacturers. And so, for instance, if I want to target mulch and soil now, knowing that mulch and soil manufacturers are primarily coming out of Florida, manufactured in Florida, I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in mulch and soil manufacturers in Florida. Simple as that. And so then from you doing that search on Google, it's going to give you a plethora of businesses, right? And at that point, guys, you should have a spreadsheet. And what you do is you're going to start taking that business name. You're going to start taking the location. You're going to write down the commodity again, which is mulch and soil. And then you're going to also take that phone number. And so you're going to do that for all commodities that you're looking for, whether it's mulch, soil, brick, block, steel, lumber. You're going to do that for literally every single commodity you have. You're going to find out where they're primarily manufactured and made. Once you find that area, that state, you're going to literally type in lumber manufacturers in Louisiana, lumber manufacturers in Texas. And you're going to do that where you're looking on Google and you're literally going to look at all the companies. And make sure you're looking for manufacturers, people that actually make it. They make the product, not distribution centers or not people who distribute the loads, because those people are not the ones who actually make it. They're just the ones who are in the middle, just distributing it out, right? And so you need to look for manufacturers. It's so simple. It literally will say manufacturer on Google. Even if you doubt yourself, look in the comments. You'll see certain shipper or certain carriers. You'll see the carriers in the comments. They'll say, man, they kept me here for 2 hours. They'll leave a Google review in the comments saying they kept me here for 2 hours getting me unloaded or loaded. That's letting you know that they do have carriers that pick up and deliver in their yard, and that's something that you need to know, hey, they're manufacturers and they work with us. They'll work with a shipper, they work with a carrier or a broker. And so I'm talking to manufacturers, right? So boom, from that point, I'm also going to continue to open up. If you go down farther on Google, you'll see additional matches or like searches for what you just looked for. I'm writing those down too. And so my goal is to get a list of 200 shippers. My goal is for 200 shippers. And so I'm going to go do 200 on Google. And then I'm going to go on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. This is for the people who have the paid method. And so you know how to find them. Literally, that's all it is. You're literally going to go through Google, look at the name, mark down the commodity, mark down the location, and mark down their phone number. That's it. Make sure you're targeting shippers and manufacturers, nothing else. We're going to transition over to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We're doing the same on LinkedIn. I want 200 off of Google and I want 200 off of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Yes, this is the tedious work. You're doing all this work and you haven't even made a phone call. You haven't sent the email out. You haven't marketed your brand yourself just yet. This is all the work that you have to put in. And if you do this properly, you target the proper shippers with the niche that needs that help, that you can add the most value, if you do it now, you'll be cheering yourself on later on when you landed that shipper that gets you closer to your goal. And remember, what do we need? 15 a day. You forgot. You fell asleep, man. You need 15 loads a day at a $100 margin. And so this is how we're going to get those customers, the ones that are going to actually give you the loads. 200 on Google. Now we're going to transfer over to LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? So on LinkedIn, they have an awesome sales software called the Sales Navigator. And what it does is it allows you to direct message certain management, certain people on LinkedIn. I know sometimes you see like that I think, what is it called in LinkedIn? I forgot the name of it, but you sometimes have to pay to be able to message someone. You can't message everyone on LinkedIn. And so using the Sales Navigator, they give you access to be able to direct message people. You know how you say on Instagram, hop in my DMs. You can't do that on LinkedIn with everyone. And so it allows you to be able to uncover certain titles, and it kind of just targets and filters everything out for you. And so what you're targeting, similar to what you targeted on Google, but you're going to be a lot more defined. You're going to be a lot more defined. And so what we're looking for is we're going to first start targeting small to mid-sized shippers. And so that's one of the things I want you to know, guys. When you first get started, you notice we're targeting a certain niche, and we're not targeting the biggest. Like for instance, let's just say you're targeting food and beverages. We're not targeting Coca-Cola. We're not targeting Gatorade or any of those guys. Those guys are so big. We talked about it before in the last podcast. They probably own their own trucks, which is they have their own asset. And even if they didn't, they probably wouldn't need you. They probably have a bigger broker, a box brokerage that they probably have working on their freight, which those margins are small. They churn and burn you. With the the small to mid-size shippers, those are the people that actually need your help. They just do what they do. So like you said, if I'm talking about mulch and soil manufacturers, they just make mulch and soil. They don't have any trucks. They look to work with a broker because, again, their business is primarily on their margins with their mulch and their soil, or their brick and their block, whatever it is that they produce. That's their focus. They don't have any assets, so they need you. You are of much value to them, meaning that they will be willing to pay you pretty good to do what you have to do for them. And so LinkedIn Sales Navigator, when you're typing it in, we already know we're going to search for the commodity we're searching for. We're searching for mulch manufacturers. So let's just say lumber manufacturers, okay? So then when we search that, now we're targeting small to mid-sized shippers. I'm talking about up to no more than 500 employees. So when you're targeting your shippers, we want to target small to mid-size up to 500 employees, all right? And the reason why is we don't want them to be too big. We don't want them to be too big where, again, they don't need us. And so once you target that, then you're going to target the area that you are looking to be in. And so let's just say we're dealing with mulch and soil. We already said Florida is the area that we want to be in. Then we're going to target Florida. And so we already have mulch and soil manufacturers up to 500 employees or less. We're targeting the Florida area. Now you have to target the title of the individual you're looking to reach out to and market. And so they're going to go by a couple of different titles: dispatch manager, dispatcher, shipping manager, anything that is dealing with them, traffic manager. And LinkedIn will give you a good drop down to be able to start selecting some of these things. But you're looking for whoever is in charge of the shipping department. They may go by a couple different titles, but that's who your target is. Whoever is the one who makes the decisions in shipping, that's your person. And so now you type in all those titles. You literally can type in 5, 6, 7 different titles, and it's going to target anyone who LinkedIn who goes by, let's just say, shipping manager, traffic manager. And so now you have that put in, right? You have all your criteria typed up. Now you're going to search that, and it's going to bring you everyone in Florida that goes by that title. And so now what you can do is you're going to take that company that they work for. You're going to put that in your spreadsheet. Remember your spreadsheet that you're adding your Google connections that you found? You're going to do the same thing. You're going to add that to that spreadsheet. The difference is now you're going to put the company name. Now you're going to actually know someone that works for the company who should be in charge. So you're going to put that person's name. You're also going to put the title that they go by. You're going to also copy their LinkedIn profile to that spreadsheet. You're going to want to type in that profile so you can visit it again. And also you want to make sure you put the source. I like to know if my leads come from Google or LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It may not come in handy for you now, but it will later on. And I'll tell you why when you're going over your KPIs. But once I have 200 Google leads and 200 LinkedIn Sales Navigator leads, by the way, you can save searches on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So every time there's a new person that appears under that title and that particular search that you search, is going to keep adding them to it. So you'll see pop-ups that says 10 new leads or 10 new, prospects or whatnot. And it's on you to be able to gather that information accordingly. And so now we got 400 leads. So now leads are not a problem. You know how to find the leads. We got 400 leads. We got them from Google and we got them from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? So now what's next? Now it's time to market to the leads. Now it's time to market. Now it's time to reach out, make connections, and start looking to do some business. And again, I'm not going to tell you to do any in-person meetings or events. Not effective. Doesn't immediately affect your bottom line, especially as a new broker. You need to put out a large volume of marketing, whether it's cold calls, emails, which we're going to talk about, going to events. You may be able to. There's not an event that you can go to and work the room that night to be able to talk to as many people as you're going to be able to talk to by cold calling or sending out emails, right? And so as you can see, my methods for reaching out are simple. I'm a cold call. I come from a cold call environment. When I'm going to give you all a little story. We're going to reminisce down memory lane a little bit. I played college basketball. And when I broke my ankle, I kind of didn't really know myself. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Everything was based off of dribbling or playing basketball. Even I thought about coaching, and all of that was just based off of basketball. So when I broke my ankle, I started to work for my mom's job and different call centers, and I realized I am really dominant on the phone. And it's a special niche. You're talking about someone who can be dominant on the phone, over the phone, versus someone who may be able to close and sell in person. That's a niche to do stuff over the phone. And so my favorite method is always picking up the phone. We talked about TTP, talking to people. I don't mind picking up the phone and just talking to someone. And so cold calling has been number one for me. Then we're going to talk about emails and direct messages. All right. And so I'm going to first, it's a caveat. For the ones on LinkedIn, you do not have their phone numbers. Those are what you would call your warmer leads. So the 200 that you got off of LinkedIn, those are going to be called your warm leads. Those are what you call your Glengarrys. If you don't know what Glengarry is, it's some movies. It's a good movie. I think it's from like the 80s or so, maybe even before that. Type in on YouTube, Glengarry Coffees for Closers and thank me later. But Glengarrys, when I say Glengarrys, those are the good leads. So the Glengarrys are going to be your LinkedIn Sales Navigator leads. Those are the warm leads, right? And the reason why I call them warm leads is because you can message that person directly, and now they can actually see you. They can see your profile. They can see a little bit about who you are. And from doing that, you can message them directly and hold a better conversation than barging in on someone with a cold call, right? And so those are going to be your warmer leads. The cold calls, they're exactly what it is. They're a cold call. And so when you're doing the cold calls, those are a colder lead. You're going to need to make those in volume. I'm talking about your goal should be 100 calls a day. You're not going to be able to make all 100 calls, especially if you're having a good conversation. But your goal should be 100 calls a day, 50 to 100 calls a day, right? And so you're going to be cold calling. And so that's a cold version of a lead. So we got your warm and your cold buckets, right? And so when you start marketing to those shippers, let's just say you're doing cold calls or even sending out direct message or emails. What are you actually saying? Again, these are people, shippers that you've never met before, right? And so first, we're going to start with the Google method. So the Google method is a little bit tricky because when you start calling, you're not going to immediately be able to talk to the person in charge directly. And so it's a method that we talk about, which is getting past the gatekeeper, figuring out who is in charge, getting their contact information. And so when I first get started, let's just say I'm calling a 800 number. to a mulch company in Florida. When I call them, I'm going to immediately ask to get transferred to the shipping department. I'm not going to say, I may say, hi, hey, how you guys doing today? Great. Hey, can you transfer me over to the shipping department? Or sometimes if you call and you listen to the prompts, they may say, press 4 for shipping. Your goal is to get to shipping. That's the people who are going to be able to make the decisions, right? And so you're trying to fight the gatekeeper. The person may say, hey, they may just transfer you directly over to shipping. Or they may say, who are you? I'm just going to say, hey, I'm Michael. Can you transfer me over to shipping? I want to be a little bit vague. I want them to think that, hey, he knows what he's doing, what he's talking about, so they don't start asking too many questions. If I say, hey, I'm Michael with this XYZ company, brokerage, logistics, I'm looking to sell you guys on working with me and sending me your loads. No, you're not going to get passed. And so, again, I want to get transferred to shipping. And so let's just say I get to the shipping department. Once I get to the shipping department, my goal, when you're making these calls, guys, I just want to let you guys know, your goal isn't to make the call and say, oh, now they're going to start sending me freight tomorrow. That's not your goal. Your goal is to gather intel. Your goal is just to gather intel. You don't even know if these people need you or not. So when I'm calling, I'm looking to find out first who's in charge and their phone number. Just give me who's in charge and the contact information. If you don't have that, you can't properly market to them, right? And so when I'm calling a shipper, the main thing for me is I want to ask them, who's in charge? Who's in charge? They may say who you are. Who are you? Again, I'm Mike Upshire. I'm Michael. I was looking to see who's in charge, and you're looking to just get a name. Just give me a name. If they give me the name and they say, oh, he's busy, if they can't transfer me over to him, cool. When I call back again, I'm going to call even with more authority. I'm going to say, hey, let's just say they say the shipper's name is Bob, but Bob is not available. Bob said, hey, he can't talk. Whatever the case may be. Good. I'm just going to hang up. I know the shipper's name is Bob. So when I call back, I'm going to say, hey, is Bob available? They're going to be like, yeah. They think that I've already worked with Bob the way I call with confidence to be able to ask for him. And so now I got the name. My whole goal was to get the name. And so now when I'm talking to Bob, let's just say, when I'm talking to Bob, my goal, again, is not to get Bob to send me freight immediately. And I want you to know, when you're calling shippers, guys, you have to plan about 90 days before you even think about even getting your first shipper, let alone moving freight. When I say 90 days, your first 2 months, your first 60 days, 2 months, you're going to be hitting the pavement. And yes, you're going to have a lot of good conversation. You're going to have leads, but on average, it's not going to be to that third month that the people you've been cultivating those relationships with start to actually work with you and send you some type of business. And so you have to really be invested and committed to the process. It's not about the $250,000 at the end. I know that's what we're all looking to make, but it is so much about the journey and learning the process, because once you learn how to find a shipper, you can duplicate that process day in and day out, right? And so when I'm talking to the shipper, again, my goal isn't for them to give me freight. So I'm not saying, hey, I'm a broker. I was working. Do you work with brokers too? If so, maybe you can send me your loads. No, far from it. When I talk to Bob, I'm going to let Bob know, listen, hey, I'm Mike. Hey, and I'm going to pivot on a couple different ways, right? So the first way is I'm going to either reference that I'm working with carriers in the area, or I'm going to reference a local shipper in the area that ships a similar good. Well, let's just say it's a mulch company. I would call and I would tell them, I would say, hey, listen, my name is Mike, man. Hey, listen, I got a couple carriers that I'm working with, and they are, they've been telling me about your company, man. We actually deliver down the street. And guys, sometimes you may not work with those customers down the street. You have to envision yourself working with the carriers and customers that they work in that same similar niche, because again, you got to get your foot in the door somewhere. And so when I'm talking to customers, I'm letting them know, hey, I already have trucks. I'm working with trucks that are delivering the product that you make. They're delivering the product that you make. And they've been telling me to give you a call. I don't know what's worth the conversation. And that's how I'm opening up my call. I'm breaking the ice. I'm letting them know, hey, listen, I'm in the industry. I've done it before. I'm working with drivers. I may even throw out that most of my drivers, they're looking for back hauls back home. Meaning that The driver that's looking for a load to get back home, they're going to take less money than a driver who's looking for a load coming out of where his home is. So if he's going away from home, he's going to look for a lot more money. Coming back home, they'll take less money. They want to get home. And so when I talk to the shipper, I'm going to say, hey, listen, I work with a couple different carriers. Most of my guys are running backhauls. They're looking for backhauls out of the area. And they've been telling me about your company. And so automatically they're going to say, okay, cool. He's been in the industry before. He has some carriers already ready to go. And they're looking for backhauls, meaning I can save some extra money working with this person. And that is my way of dropping their guard down, easing the ice a little bit. Obviously, you have to add your own pizzazz and your own personality to it. But that is my way of getting started. And then from that point on, my goal is to gather as much information as possible. Because again, you don't even know if they need you. They may have their own assets. They may have a contract with whatever broker that only that broker can work with the freight. So they don't work with any outside brokers. You never know. But my goal is to find intel. And so the questions that we're going to ask, I took some notes for the questions. I want you guys to write this down. All right. So these are points that you want to find out on your calls with shippers. You are not just calling saying, give me your freight. Can I have your freight? You're not just calling for that. This is the information you need to find out to make sure you had an effective call, especially your first calls. So I want to know a little bit about their shipping and how it is organized. I want to know, does the customer pay for the shipping? Meaning, for instance, mulch of the some of the mulch or soil companies, they'll manufacture the mulch, and when the customer that they have buys the mulch, we did a job for HDTV. Very fucking cool. And when I say a job for them, the shipper or the manufacturer, they manufacture mulch. HDTV had a big project that they were doing in Daytona, and they needed that mulch at a specific time. And so HDTV, they paid for the shipping. So meaning that the customer, or our customer, which is the shipper, they didn't pay us to move the load. The customer paid us to move the load. And so it's awesome to kind of know, how is their shipping organized? You know, do you have to set appointments for some of the shipping and receiving? And so those are things you want to know. How is your shipping organized? You want to also know, how many full truckloads do they ship average per week? This is something that you guys want to know. How many full truckloads do they ship average per week? Let's just say they're only shipping one truckload. Now, starting out, you're basically taking anyone that's going to work with you. But as you start to go on and I make my calls, I realize if I got someone that's only moving 5 loads a week, or not even 5, maybe let's just say 2 or 3, even 5. Is that someone that I really want to spend my time with, having a service and different things? Or do I want to shoot for someone who's maybe doing 10 loads a week, 2 a day? And so that's what you want to know. You want to figure out how many full truckloads are they doing average per week. It also goes by how many FTLs. We want to talk about LTLs, less than truckloads. That means that the truckload is not full. And so you want to know how many they do they do a week with less than truckloads. When is their busy season? How is it during busy season? You know, how many loads do they do during busy season? And again, when is their actual busy season? Do they use outside brokers or any other carriers? Meaning, do they even work with brokers? You have to know that. You can have a great conversation with a shipper. You get off the phone and you don't even know if they work with brokers or not. And so, do they work with brokers? Do they use outside carriers? Do you or have you ever worked with a broker? Is a great question. What is your experience like working with brokers, and how can it get better? Those are great questions because you want them to tell you if they had a good experience or a bad experience. Whether it's good or bad, how do they see it can improve? They're literally telling you what they need, their problems. They're literally telling you their problems. And again, we're here to solve problems. We're here to gather intel, figure out the problem, and solve that problem. We're not here to just say, give me your load. That's one track. That's a one-track mindset, all right? You want to ask them, do they own their own assets? 9 times out of 10, they're going to use their own trucks as they pay for them. So the trucks that they own are going to move the freight. That doesn't mean you can't move freight for them. They may only have 2 trucks, and they still may have a handful of loads that need to be moved. So you still can help, but you want to know, do they own their own assets? You want to make sure how long they've been working with the brokers or the carriers that they've been working with. Do they actually like the brokers and carriers that they're working with? These are all the questions that I ask on my calls. And so if I need to go over it again, I'm going to say you need to figure out how many full truckloads they're shipping, how many limited truckloads are they shipping, less than truckloads are they shipping. When is their busy season? How is it during busy season? How many loads are they moving back and forth during busy season? Do they work with brokers or carriers? What has their experience been like? How can it get better? Do they own their own assets? How long have they been working with those brokers and those carriers? And what do they like about them? And where could they see room for improvement? And so from that call, it's a difference between making the call and just trying to get someone to say, oh, do you work with brokers? Could you send me some freight now? They say, nope, I'm not working with any new brokers right now. And you get off the phone and you on to the next. And when I first got started, a lot of my calls are like that. A lot of my calls are like that. Actually, I had a little trick. And you can mix this in with asking the questions. You got to realize when you're calling a shipper, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. They don't want to fucking hear from you. If it's a slow season, they don't need you. It's a slow season. If it's a busy season, they're too busy working with the current freight at hand, the current brokers at hand to even give you the time of day. So there's never a great time to talk to a shipper. And so when you're calling them again, when we're talking to them, it has to be some type of value added. First off, again, I'm going to recap. First off, I am not using my brokerage as the saving grace. So I'm not saying, hey, this is Mike calling from All in All Transportation. No, that's not what you're doing. I'm Mike. Listen, I had a couple carriers that I work with. They've been telling me to give you a call, man. These guys are running back hauls. They're going from Cross City. They're trying to get out of Cross City. They're trying to get back home. Anywhere out of Florida is good for them. They just need to get out of Florida. I'm starting out that conversation to break the ice to let them know I know what I'm doing. I'm in the industry. I can talk the knowledge. I have the shippers. I can save you the money without having to say all that, right? Then I start focusing on the questions. And it's just a general conversation. Hey, by chance, man, I don't know if it's worth the conversation, but, do you guys work with any brokers? Oh, you do? How's your experience been with them? And how long have you been working with them? And from that point on, that's when I start asking my questions. And then I always end it with this. I'm not looking for an opportunity. I know you get a lot of calls from a lot of different brokers. I'm not looking for an opportunity. I'm looking for a problem to solve. I'm a problem solver. I'm looking for the loads that give you the most trouble that no other broker wants. Those are the ones I want to help you out with. I know it may not be the right time right now, but I just want to, see if it's worth the conversation. At that point, it is on the shipper to figure out if they want to continue the conversation or if it's something that you guys can work with. And guys, all of this is not going to be accomplished on the first call. It's going to take some multiple calls. I like to say 10 touches to be able to accomplish everything you need. 10 touches before they become an actual customer of yours, right? And so now we know what to say. We know what questions to ask. Now that we ask the right questions, we presented ourselves in the right manner, we actually have a lead. And when I say have a lead, if they work with brokers, they're shipping the amount of shipments that you want per week. I got a lead to follow with. All the questions have been answered. All my intel now, I need to properly follow up with it. So I tell everyone, when you're doing the follow-ups, when you're following up with your shippers, this is where the money's made. Those calls that you guys do and you think, oh, they said they work with brokers. Oh, yes. That is not the end all be all. The follow-up, the money's made in the follow-ups. And so the goal for my team, my sales team and myself, 10 touches. Once you touch that person 10 times, when I say 10 touches, I'm not meaning 10 physical touches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't mean physical touches. I mean 10 touches where it can be an email communication, phone call communication, text message, sending them a little gift. 10 touches is what you need before you're going to see, on average, that person, that shipper convert from a lead to an actual customer, right? And so 10 touches. I'm going to recommend you guys for follow-ups. You guys probably are going to start, depending on where your dollar amount is at, you guys are probably going to start using spreadsheets, which is okay. You can create a note section on your spreadsheet, or you can right-click. I use Google Spreadsheet, so if you right-click on a Google Spreadsheet, it will allow you to leave a comment, and the comments are timestamped. That's how I started out. Before I started buying fancy equipment and technology and all this stuff, CRMs, I started off using spreadsheets. And so whenever you follow up with a shipper, remember, you have your list. You should have 400 on that list. You should have a notes section to leave notes. You're going to leave notes there. And I will advise you to, if you're using Google Spreadsheets, what I highly recommend, right click, leave a comment. It'll timestamp it, the date and time, so you know when you last talked to that person. And if you schedule a follow-up, what I would used to do is I would have color code. So meaning that, let's just say orange. Orange means there's a follow-up, and it's a current follow-up, right? And I'll set it up on my Google Calendar to make sure I see it so I can actually follow up with that person at the right time. For me now, I've evolved. I use Pipedrive. For you, those of you guys who don't know, I use Pipedrive as my CRM that allows me to log in all the data that I need, set different follow-up activities, and streamline the process a lot better than using spreadsheets and Google Calendar and all that good stuff. But for the sake of it, I'm giving you guys the free method, and I'm giving you guys the paid method. And you can use a mixture of both. Even if you use Pipedrive, you can still use your Google Calendar. But to follow up, you're either going to use your spreadsheet and a mixture of updating your notes on the Google spreadsheet and then putting the follow-up in your calendar, or you're just going to use a CRM. I use Pipedrive. The follow-up is so key. Everything we went over, all the questions we actually asked, that is the data that you need, and you need to be able to properly log in that data so when you call, you don't sound stupid on the phone asking them, hey, are you guys still looking for brokers to work with? And they're like, well, I just told you our peak season doesn't really start until about mid-May or so, and so we don't really need anyone right now. You can have that data and you can use it in your favor for the next call and the next call and the next call. Because remember, you need 10 touches, right? So the follow-up is key. So now let's just say, boom, you've actually followed up and you now have a customer to work with. You accomplished your job. Now you got you're like wiping the sweat off your brow. Because remember, the broker, they needed you to get a customer. And so you've been smiling and dialing for the last 30 to 60 days. You finally got your customer. So now the work begins. They're going to give you freight, but it depends. It differs from every shipper. When I first started working with the customers I work with, I had the luck and I was blessed to have a customer that they advertised all of their loads, or at least the loads that weren't being pocket sent to other brokers. They advertised the ones that the other brokers didn't want. They advertised on a load board, and not a load board like DAT or Internet Truck Stop. It was an internal load board for all the brokers that work with that particular shipper to be able to look on the load board and say, okay, I'm going to bid on this freight. And so that's how I got started working off of load boards. For most people, what you're probably going to do, they're probably going to send you a couple of loads and they're going to ask you for quotes. They're going to ask you for quotes. So they're not going to give you the luxury of saying, hey, this is the load I have available. This is the rate, you can bid on it or not. They're going to ask you for a quote. And so this is the next, I would say, level of entry, because even when you get that customer, if you don't know how to quote freight, you can be quoting year long and never win anything, because people are quoting the freight better than you, and you're quoting your freight too high, meaning the shipper doesn't want to grant you that bid or doesn't want to award you that load. And so for me, I want to talk to you. We're going to talk about quoting, because again, you did all the work. First, you got your goals now. You got your broker. You got the leads ready to go. You know how to call. You know how to get customers. You got your first customer. It's like, okay, now I'm ready to move the freight. And they give you the freight and they say, hey, Mike, I need a quote for a Fresno, or for, let's just say, a Slidell, Louisiana into Mesa, Arizona load. I need a quote for that one. What do? Remember, don't get nervous. For us, we're only looking for $100 margins, meaning we only need to make $100. And so this is how it works. When you give them a quote, let's just say you can do a Slidell, Louisiana to a Mesa, Arizona. Let's just say you can do that load. You're looking online. You're going to use DAT and Internet Truck Stop. First off, those are the two that I use. DAT and Internet Truck Stop, they give you a market average. When I say a market average, they give you the average that lane is being moved for. Now, that's not all we're going to go by, but we're going to use that as a starting point. Mind you, you're newer. We're new. And so we're going to use that as a starting point. And so let's just say the average for that load is $1,400. That means that the average for a Slidell, Louisiana to Mesa, Arizona load currently in the market is $1,400, meaning a carrier would move that load for $1,400. DAT, they have a unique little kind of like market average. They'll give you the low end, the average, and the high end. So let's just say the average is 1,400, the low end is 1,350, and the high end is 1,475, right? But the average is 14. And so when you look at that, I will also go on another kind of like a rate comparison tool. You can use Internet Truck Stop. You can use Trucker Tools. And let's just say you get 1,400 from DAT, 1,300 from Internet Truck Stop, and let's just say 1,300 from Trucker Tools. I'll take the average of those three, and whatever it is, let's just say it's 1,350. I'll take that average, and from that point on, now I have a base. And that's just my base. So I'll take that average, now I have a baseline, which is 1,350 is what I'm looking at, right? Mind you, if I want to make $100 margins on that load, and again, the carrier is going to get that load for 1,350 average, I need to add my $100 margin on top, meaning that I need to bid on that load no less than 1,450. No less than 1,450. And the reason why is that I need to make my $100. I know that I can still probably move the load because average truckers are taking it at 1,350. So if I want to make $100, I need the customer. I need the customer to grant me that load for $1,450. $1,450, right? And so that is the baseline. Now, when you start building the brokerage, you notice it may say the average is 1,300, but if you look on the load boards, specifically DAT or Internet Truck Stop, you will see that there's no other drivers posting that load. There's like a handful of drivers, and the drivers that have it, or the brokers that have it posted, or the shippers that have it posted, they have it posted at 1,200. And so that is when I know I can quote a little bit less because I know there's no one else who has that load. It doesn't matter. The market is saying it's 1,400, but if the brokers that are posting the load on these load boards that are what carriers can see, they're only posting at 1,200. That means that I can post it at 1,250, 1,300, still beat out the competition, and now I'm the highest load on the board. Therefore, I don't need to get the load I don't need to give them it for 1,400. Now, I still may say 1,450 is what I need the load for to the customer, but when I get that load for 1,450, I may post it for 1,250. Now, I don't have a $100 margin. I have a $200 margin. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We're going to start with $100 margins, okay? Like we talked about. And so I have a customer. A customer sent me some freight to quote out. It's a Slidell, Louisiana to Mesa, Arizona load. After I've did my market average, I can see in that area, even the truck capacity in Arizona is very fluid. When I say the truck capacity, that's another thing that I look for when I'm quoting loads, how easy it is to get in and out of that area. If I see 300 trucks coming in that area and 100 going out, I know it's going to be hard for that carrier to get out of Arizona, right? But if I see 300 coming in and 200 and something going out, that means it's a pretty fluid market. It's pretty easy. Trucks are going in, trucks are going out. That's how the market should be, right? And so now I have my baseline. I know, okay, cool. I need to be around 1,350 for me to move this load with carriers. So I'm going to go back and tell my customer, hey, I can move this load for 1,450. I have a truck for it. I'm going to pick up this load at this time. Mind you, guys, listen, you have to improvise this a little bit because if you're new, you don't have any trucks. You don't have any trucks. And so most of the time, 90% of the time, the customer they don't want to hear that you don't have a truck. They don't want to hear that. They know I have this load. It needs to be picked up at this time and delivered at this time. Can you do it? Yes or no? And so when I give them that quote, I tell them I have a truck ready to go. I can do it for 1,450. They're going to analyze all the other brokers and everyone that's bid on that freight. And if they feel like you're the best, meaning you may have the best price, or everyone's canceled them, they don't have anyone that's giving them a rate or a quote, they're going to go with you. And so now you've given your quote at 1,450 and ding, 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 it's been awarded. The bid has now been awarded to you. And so now the game is on. You have to move that freight. And mind you, you quoted a shipper as if you have a truck because you're new. You don't have any trucks available. So now the pressure's really on. You have to find a truck and you have to move that load. And so now we're going to get into moving freight. We're going to get into moving freight. This is, some of the fun part. This is the part that gets you going. It keeps you going. It keeps you moving and grooving. This is the part that you see a lot of brokers running around like a chicken with their head chopped off because they're actively moving freight. That's our number one goal. So you have just, the quote has just been approved. Your bid has just been approved. The load contact has now sent you or tendered over the freight. And when I say tendered over your freight, they're sending you the information on the freight. They may send it via spreadsheet. They may send it, on an actual paperwork. But they're going to send you all the information, the weight, the commodity that you're shipping, what type of truck is needed, what type of special equipment is needed, where it's picking up, where it's delivering, if it needs a delivery appointment, the rate for that. They're going to send you all over. They're going to send you all that information. And so once you get that, now the work begins. And so how are you going to move the freight? Now, in order to move the freight as a broker, you can't physically move it yourself. You're the broker. What you have to do is now you have to find a motor carrier to match with the freight that you've just been approved. Your bid just was approved from. And so we are the ultimate matchmaker. And so we match the customer's freight with the right carrier. And so the way we're going to do that, we're immediately going to hop on load boards. And the two that I use are DAT and Internet Truck Stop. And so what you're going to have to do, Internet Truck Stop and DAT, they have a certain format, like a specific spreadsheet format that you're going to have to type in all that load information in. And I'm not going to go over it now. Once you get Internet Truck Stop and DAT, it'll literally give you a whole tutorial on how the spreadsheets need to be set up. For me and my team, I have one spreadsheet and it's titled MZM Loads, and it's like the date. MZM Loads 3/26/24. And that lets us know what the loads are for the day for us. And so we have a tab that's titled Internet Truck Stop, and we have a tab that's titled DAT. DAT spreadsheet formula that they have, the way they want it typed up and entered into their system is different than Internet Truck Stop. But you're going to have to put that information on the spreadsheet. And normally you're going to have to be able to put it on a spreadsheet and export it via a CSV file. And you're going to upload that spreadsheet into DAT. So the DAT tab, you're uploading into DAT, and the Truck Stop tab, you're uploading into Truck Stop. And so now what you're doing, you're essentially, I call DAT or Internet Truck Stop is like the trucker's version of Google. And so when you go on Google and you're looking for a good, let's just say even you're looking for a car, you're going to say, okay, use cars near me. And it starts popping up all the dealerships and all the things that are closest to you, right? And normally you're going to look at that first page, those first couple of businesses and cars, and you're going to start looking at those immediately. It's the same thing with freight. When you upload via DAT and Internet Truck Stop, your load is now marketed to thousands and thousands and thousands of carriers and dispatchers that are looking. And if I have a Slidell, Louisiana load to a Mesa, Arizona, I'm going to be marketing to the carriers that are typing in anywhere close to Slidell, Louisiana and Mesa, Arizona. And so when I post that load, and let's just say they have that particular search criteria, meaning Slidell to Mesa, the load is for a flatbed, the carrier has a flatbed, or the dispatcher has a flatbed, they're looking for loads that meet their criteria. And so when I first post, my load goes to the top. And so that's why you want to post. You want to post and make sure that you get your load at the top where all eyes are on it. That allows the carriers and dispatchers to see it, and that starts getting you calls for your load. If you're not getting calls for your load is probably shitty and no one wants it, and you're going to have a hard time moving it. But again, you price it right, you quote it right, you will know. If you start getting a lot of calls on that load, immediately as soon as you post it, just know there is more money to be made. Mind you, we're only doing $100 margins, but when you post that load and you notice, man, that phone is buzzing for that load immediately, that means there's more money. You can price it a little bit better and you can get a little bit more out of that margin. But when we post the load, that is how we start to move the freight initially, because we do not have any motor carriers to work with. And so every single call is going to be a dispatcher or carrier that could be valuable to your book of business. And so moving the freight, again, you post a load, the carriers are going to call you. And I have a specific script that I go off of to vet the carriers. Again, first thing I want to know is I want to know what I greet them. I make sure that they're having a great day, but I will need to know their motor carrier number. That's their license ID as to their driving record, their driving history. So I need to know their MC number. I need to know how many trucks they're working on. Once I know those two things, and I start giving them the information that they called about, which is the load itself, I'm going to let them know the commodity, how many pallets it's on. If it's on pallets, I'm going to let them know the weight. I'm going to let them know the type of equipment that they need, whether it's flatbed, Conestoga, step deck, whatever, what type of equipment, I'm going to let them know. I'm going to also confirm the pickup and delivery details, all right? And then from that point on, I'll tell them any special equipment that they need. I'll let them know, the small little points about shipping. So let's just say they need tarps. I'll let them know the load does need tarps, but it is first come, first serve. So those are special information that they may want to know or need to know. And then I get to the rate. And so that call usually takes anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. It's not long. Even though you want to build rapport with the carrier, it doesn't take too long to build rapport. And again, they're calling you for a reason because they saw that load and most likely they're interested in that load. And so we judge our brokers on the phone. We call them carrier sales because they're dealing primarily with the carriers when you're posting it on DAT and Internet Truck Stop. We primarily look at their conversion ratio from the incoming calls that they have to how many book loads that they actually book. And so we'll talk about more of that with the KPIs, but I say that to say this. When you start posting it, the incoming calls are most important for you. That's how you're going to start making your money. And that's called the post and pray method because, again, you're posting your loads and you're just praying that someone calls you to book that load. You don't have a carrier for it just yet. Again, you're just getting started. You just won your first bid. So now you have to find the carrier, and this is the way you're going to find it. You're going to type it in on the spreadsheet. You're going to post that load on DAT, Internet Truck Stop. Again, if you pick the right broker, they're going to give you technology and tools just like that. And so that's why it's key to find a broker that offers these type of tools because now you can start fielding carriers. And so when you start getting those calls, you're going to start giving them the information like I told you, give them the rate. Now at that point, the broker is going to say yes or no. They're going to say either I want to book the load or I want more money. 9 times out of 10, if they're calling you, they want the load, so they're going to book it with you. And so let's just say you do this enough. You quote that freight enough where you're getting a load a day. You need 15, but now you got one carrier that at least gives you a load a day, 5 a week. You're closer to your goal. Again, you're closer to your goal. So now you understand if I do not have a carrier for a load, if I post it, that allows me to field the carriers to find someone. So when you post a load, you'll get incoming calls. If you're not getting any calls, the calls that you do get, you want to ask and talk and communicate with that carrier to figure out what is wrong with this load that I'm not getting a lot of calls on. Also, outside of incoming calls, you're going to do outbound calls. Another method for finding carriers is going to be simply going on DAT and Truck Stop. And if I have a Slidell, Louisiana to a Mesa, Arizona load, I'm going to go on DAT and I'm going to go on Internet Truck Stop and I'm going to literally go to find a truck. And I'm going to proactively look for the trucks that are, there are drivers, there are dispatchers, there are trucks that literally post their loads or post their trucks on DAT and Internet Truck Stop. And they're basically saying, hey, I have an available truck and I want to go, and I'm in Louisiana, Slidell, and I want to go here, right? And so I just start calling them. Now, the likelihood of you closing that type of sale or that type of call is slimmer than you closing the incoming call. The incoming calls, remind you, you've written all the information about the load on a spreadsheet. So when they call you, they've already saw the information. So guess what? They probably want the load versus when you're calling out, they have not called you. They probably clearly can see the load that you have on the load board, but they have not called you yet. So it's a harder sale, but you have the best of both worlds. You can dial out and outbound, or you can post and receive inbound calls. And that's initially how you're going to get started. Now, as you start to refine yourself, you're going to start building a network of those carriers that have moved the lane before, which is leading into a little bit of our segment number 5 or 4, I think it is building your carrier network. But before we get into that, let's just say your carrier, again, you posted a load for the first time. You just received your freight. You just won a bid from your customer. They've given you the load. They give you the tender, the load tender. They give you the information on that load. You typed it onto the spreadsheet on DAT. You typed it in on the Internet Truck Stop tab. You've uploaded it on both DAT and Internet Truck Stop. And so now you start receiving calls, and you actually get a driver that wants to book the load. Or you got an outbound call and someone wants to book it. So now the back end work comes into play. Again, this is all having to do with moving freight. So someone has said, yes, Mike, I want to move that load. You have it posted for $1,350. Remember, we got it for $1,450 from the customer. That's a $100 margin for us. And so now what we have to do is we have to get the carrier what is called a rate con. RATECON, rate con. And that is like I call it a digital receipt. It's like an agreement. It's an agreement again that is telling the carrier, hey, listen, the carrier is going to sign this and say, hey, I'm agreeing to pick up this load here, deliver it here. I know it's this commodity. I know it's this weight. I know this is the price. And I know this is the special information or equipment that I may need. Right. And so you're going to have to type out that rate con. And the software that you use, again, going back to it, picking the right broker. If they give you good software, the correct software, we use Aljax in this situation. We take the carrier information, their MC, phone number, driver, point of contact's name, point of contact's number, their license plate. Also, we got to make sure that we get a picture of the license plate too, their license plate actual number, and their truck and trailer number. And so we get all of that information and we type it in. And in Aljax, it creates the rate con out for us. And the rate con is automatically sent in our system to the carrier, right? And so from that point on, once the carrier signs, now the job is just getting started. You've like, oh, woo! I told the customer I was going to pick up this load today. I found the customer to pick it up today and deliver it tomorrow. Woo! Now the work even gets more strenuous because you have to perform. And so I'll tell you guys, this is the part that really I had to learn for a while, because I thought that the job was done once the customer commits. And you'll see in this industry, these carriers, they will turn on you in a heartbeat. You'll book a load for pickup tomorrow, and they'll have a load. Let's just say you told them they're going to get $1,350 on that load, and they got to pick it up tomorrow, right? So they're going to pick it up tomorrow, and let's just say between now and tomorrow, they're looking on the load board, and they find a load that's paying $1,450, $100 more than you. It is so easy for a carrier to say, oh, I'm dropping that load, and now you got to find someone else to recover that load. That happens a lot. And so that's why after the rate con is sent and that customer basically signs and says, hey, I'm taking responsibility of picking up that load. For roles, you have the sales manager role. Obviously, you have the role of being the owner, but you have the sales manager role when you're marketing to new customers. You have the admin role when you are doing rate cons and following up with carriers and following up with the customer. And then you have a collections role. And so once the rate con is signed, now the work begins. You have to make sure that the driver arrives on time. You have to make sure the driver is loaded with the correct material and not overweight. You have to make sure the driver gets to the co-signee or the delivery on time. And you have to make sure once they're delivered or once they get there on time, it is nothing wrong with the commodity. It's not damaged. There's no claims. And so the way you do that is you have to collect the paperwork, which is called the POD or the proof of delivery paperwork. And so all of that we do via either check calls or we sometimes track the shipments. And so that is a whole entire beast in itself. You have drivers that arrive late, drivers that lie and say they're on their way and they're 30 minutes out. And let's just say the shipper closes at 3 o'clock and they're saying, I'm going to be there at 3:30. And they're lying to you and say, oh, I'm close. That's why in the back end, again, that's where the money is really made. After you get the shipper and they give you the customer and you start moving the freight, you find the carrier, you got to make sure you handle your end of the job, the bargain. You got to make sure a truck is there with the right equipment, is able to haul what you need to be moved, to arrive at the delivery on time, and the commodity or the product is safe and sound. That is your job. And so from that point on, you're gonna go through a plethora of calls. I'm running late for pickup, and all of this information the carrier is telling you. You have to go back and tell your customer. If you told your customer you're gonna pick up at 2:00 and the carrier is 30 minutes late and it's a tight time frame, you got to break that bad news to the customer. And so that's the admin work. That is essentially how you move freight. And so you do that same method enough, you're going to start to see trends. Trends in carriers calling for certain loads that okay, that's a good load. You're going to start seeing trends where, hey, this same carrier is booking the freight that I normally have. You're going to start understanding where your markets are at. And from doing this, I would say for 90 days, if you it took you 90 days already to get your first customer. Another 90 days now if you're actually learning how to move freight. Because you need to know, okay, what lanes do my customers normally give us? What is the margins that I'm looking at? Do I have a customer base for a carrier base for? All of that is what you're learning in those 90 days. And so now for me, and I wish I knew this, once I understood how to move freight, I understood that I need the carriers. I cannot just continue to post a load and wait for a carrier to call, or I try to dial out. It's not a way to scale your business. You don't have any type of predictability in your business, consistency in your business, and point blank period. You're going to deal with a lot of one-off carriers that you're just booking off of the load board, and you don't know how that carrier performs. And if that carrier performs bad, the carrier is going to go on to the next load, but the shipper will always remember how that performance went, and they're going to put it on you as the broker. And so that's why this next segment, this next point is super key. We're talking about building your carrier network. All right, so we're talking about building your carrier network. And up until this point, to be honest, everything else is pretty easy. Even making the calls to find the shippers, that is the most tedious thing because you don't have a book of business and you're trying to make money. And you think that when you land the shipper now, the money's automatically made. But one of the most important parts for us is building your carrier network. And so before I even get into how to do that and how we go about that, I want to let you know why. And so like we talked about, you got a customer and the customer asked you to quote their freight. Now you've been quoting freight and you've been winning bids. You've been winning bids on loads that you now have to move. And so up until, a certain point, you're so new that you don't have any carriers. So you have to post on the load boards and you're praying that they call you. And so once you have a couple of months under your belt and you've moved a handful of loads, you're going to start to understand that your success is not going to be with the carrier that you make the most money off of. Your success is going to be the carrier that you can rely on and that you can trust and that is predictable. And when I say that, we're dealing with $100 margins, but you'll notice a lot, like I told you, when you start receiving a lot of calls on your loads, and as soon as you post that load, you're receiving calls, you'll know that, man, I priced that load. I could have got more on that margin. And so let's just say next time you post it for 200 or 300, you get less calls, but you still do get calls. You still end up booking it. Pickup time is the same as before. But instead of calling your boy Bob has moved that load for you 2 or 3 times. You know what he's going to do, but you only make $100 with Bob. You use another broker. You use Jimmy. Now, Jimmy, you making $300 off of. So like Jimmy now is your best friend. But what you guys don't realize is Jimmy is a pathological liar. Jimmy said that he was going to be pulling up to the shipper, and Jimmy is nowhere near the shipper. And so those things affect your service. If you are telling the customer that your truck is on site and the truck is nowhere near, the communication's off, it looks bad on you. You tell the shipper you're going to pick up a load at a certain time and it's not picked up at a certain time because the driver didn't tell you or whatever the case may be, that's on you. If you're supposed to pick up the load at this certain time and the shipper closes, and by the time the carrier gets there, the shipper's still going to be upset. You're supposed to pick up that load that day and they're closed. That is on you. And so what I've learned is that by using the same carriers, even though I may make a little bit less money, my business continues to evolve because I can offer a great service, a reliable service, a predictable service, a service that I can build my business around, and a service that the customers can build their business around and help their supply chain. And so If I know that I can make $300 with Jimmy, like I told you, but I only make $100 with Bob, but Jimmy's lying, Jimmy's late, Jimmy is not a pleasure to be with when he picks up, he's rude. That is all going to affect the service you offer your customers. And eventually they're not going to want to deal with you. They're going to cut you, and they're going to cut you silently. You're going to be hitting them up and they're going to say, oh, I don't got nothing available. I don't have any freight. And that's basically their way of saying, I don't want to work with you. So we're going to start focusing on building that network of carriers. So one, we can offer the best service to our customers, but two, we now don't have to work as hard, because it is way better for us to be able to immediately win the bid on the load, receive our tender, and now we have the freight. And instead of having to post it on the load board and field calls, we can go in our network database and we can say, okay, Bob, I got that same load. Yep, you know how you like it. The same way, same rate, same commodity, all of that. That helps you out so much, because now you can start focusing on building your business, because, again, you still need to be calling shippers while all this is happening. And so while you are bidding on freight, moving the freight, sending out the rate cons, tracking the driver from point A to point B, you're still calling for new shippers. So now you need your time back. And if you have a carrier network also too, you're able to get that time back, because you can work a lot smarter than working harder. And so the way we're going to do it, let's get started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. I'm feeling good, baby. I hope you guys are feeling good. So first off, we have to identify the lanes that our customers are offering and that they need help with. It does us no good looking for carriers in an area that we don't have any freight for them. It's fine to talk to Bob and Jimmy and shoot the shit with them and see how the year's been going, what type of truck they have and the lanes they like and all that good stuff. But guys, we have to service the customer, and the customer is the one who gives us the freight. So remember that load I was telling you that comes out of Slidell, Louisiana to Mesa, Arizona? Now you've been moved that load, let's just say 20 to 30 times already. You know the ins and outs of that load. You know the carriers that like that lane. And so now you have about 5 different carriers that you know want to move that lane. So now when you're you're trying to build your carrier network, you're basing it around the lanes that your customer has to offer you, the areas that you know you need to be able to move their freight from, right? So that's number one. And so how I'm going to start doing that, I got 2 ways. So I got 2 ways to finding carriers. Number one is going to be, remember I told you those call-ins off of DAT and Internet Truck Stop? I told you, when you receive these carrier call-ins, one, that allows you to know, man, this is a hot lane. This is a lane that I want to put more attention to, because carriers are actually calling for this lane. But then also when you actually book a carrier that successfully picks up and delivers and does what he says he's going to do and doesn't damage the good, and you like dealing with him, that is someone that's going to get added to my network. So when I get that lane again, instead of posting it, I'm going to just call him, and I'm going to call him again and again and again and again and again. And even if he's not available to move the freight, because I have such a good relationship with Bob may even say, hey, I can't move it, but I got a friend that can. And that's what comes from the carrier network. So number one is going to be call-ins. All the ones that called in, I don't want to say just call-ins, the carriers that you've booked. From using the post and pray method, you've now had a list of carriers that have moved that lane or moved it multiple times. And if you just follow up with them and you know they did a good job, now you can continuously put them on the job. All right. And so that's my number one method. The loads that I book, I'm just going to use those same carriers. The next is going to be going on DAT and Internet Truck Stop. Remember I was telling you about finding a truck. You can literally type in again, Slidell, Louisiana to Mesa, Arizona, under the Find a Truck section, whether it's DAT or Internet Truck Stop. And you can put all the special information, whether it's the weight, the type of truck you need, when it needs to be picked up, and it'll show you all the trucks in that area, and you can just start calling them. And again, guys, because you know you have that load, you may only have 2 or 3 loads that you get a day, 1 or 2 or 3. Let's just say the customer trusts you a little bit more now. You're up to 3 loads a day. You're making $300 a day off of those loads, $1,500 a week. Woohoo! Now you're working, right? So now what you have to do is understand, I need to build a good network of carriers, because maybe one or two is not enough. If those two are busy, then I have to go back to using these spot market carriers. And remember Jimmy, who's a pathological liar? We want to get away from Jimmy. We got to get away from him. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on Internet Truck Stop and DAT, and we would type in find trucks. And we would just call the trucks and we would tell them, hey, listen, I'm getting a lot of these loads from my carrier. I'll tell them what we're getting. I'll tell them the rate. And I would just ask them, is that a lane that they want to move? Is that enticing to them? Is that something that they would like to work with us on? And you would get yes or no's. Even if I didn't have a lane, I would still call, because I knew I'm always going to get that Slidell to Mesa, Arizona, or something in that vicinity, right? Again, you've been working with your customer long enough now where now you're at the point where now you know you need the network, and you know what network you need to build it around, the areas you need to build it around. And so I'm going to use Find a Truck off of Internet Truck Stop and DAT, and I also am going to use the carriers that I already have booked with me. And that's how I'm going to start developing my network of carriers. And so when I start finding them, let's just say I'm calling out and I got certain carriers that I'm dialing out to, or carriers that have booked with me before. How do I determine a carrier that I want to add to my network or a carrier that is not going to be in my network? And I'm not just talking about a carrier that is late, or a carrier that lies or doesn't show up on time. There's a lot of other factors on why a carrier wouldn't be good for that network. And one of them would just be, if I have, again, I'm going to use that same load, a Slidell, Louisiana to Mesa, Arizona. If I have that specific load and the carrier is booked at one time, if I didn't ask the right questions on the call with him, I'll call him again to book that load. And he may say, oh, I was only in that area that one time. I don't move any freight in that area. I move freight in Canada or in Washington. And so it is certain vetting questions that you're going to have to ask. And guys, did you think I was just going to say there's certain questions you have to ask without actually giving you the questions? Come on now. Remember, this is the blueprint, all right? This is the blueprint. It's not Jay-Z, baby, all right? So these are the questions that I ask my carriers. My guys on the phone, my carrier sales agents, my brokers that deal all day, every day with carriers, they ask this, and I'm constantly on them about asking it, because sometimes it gets easy to be transactional. I got a load I need to book, or I need to book and you need to pick it up today and deliver it tomorrow. You can do it. Cool. Here's the load information. Here's the rate. Let's do business. Boom. It gets easy to be very transactional, but every call, whether it's an outbound or inbound call, whether you're making the call or receiving the call, every call is important, and your goal is to gather intel. Does that sound similar as well? If you remember when we were talking about speaking with the shipper, your goal is to gather intel. Again, I'm going back to it. These are our principles in the office. We are fucking problem solvers. If we cannot solve a problem, no one's going to want to do business with us. I'm talking about problems from the customer side and the carrier's problems. Yes, the carrier has problems too. And you will not figure that out if you're being very transactional. You guys know I wasn't going to leave you hanging. I'm going to give you the question that you need to ask your carriers to properly vet them and to know, are you going to be able to add them to your network or not? And so, number one, I kind of want to know, where their driver wants to go. Where they want to go if they're the driver, or where does their driver want to go if they're like a dispatcher or something like that. That lets me know a lot. And it's not just for that current lane. They may say, hey, my driver's looking to go to, Mesa, Arizona. But overall, what areas does the driver like to vacate? What areas does he not like to go to? They'll tell you that. How many miles are they trying to run per load? You'll get a lot of drivers, specifically for us, we deal with a lot of mulch soil. These are small runs, and so certain drivers want a little bit longer run than what we have to offer. That's fine, because I know now, even if you run this lane, I know that you don't really like this particular lane. You look for something longer. So if I continue to call you, I know at least that, hey, you may not run this lane often, but you will run it if you were free, right? And so I also asked them, are they going out or coming in? And what that means is, are they going away from home or they're going back home? So if you're saying, are you going out, you're going outside of home. If you're coming in or you're coming back in, you're coming back home. And that's what we call a backhaul. A backhaul means the driver is going back home, back to where the yard is or where they call home, right? And so I want to know, are you going out or coming in? The next question I want to know, how do you normally book your freight? I want to know, do you work on the load board a lot? Do you work with any other brokers? Do you have contracted freight? The reason why also, too, if you're getting a call from someone that has contracted freight, there's a problem. If you have contracted freight and you're on the load board calling me, why are you calling me? Because there's a problem. And again, I'm asking these questions because I need to identify the problem. And so I'm going to figure out again, how do they normally book their freight? Load board, contracted freight, broker, a mixture of a few of the three that I named. And then I'm going to figure out a little bit more just about them. How long have they been driving? How long have they been, how long have they been driving? How long have they been dispatching? I want to know how has the year been for them? However they've been doing their business, has it been bad, good? And all of these questions you can ask literally and get off the phone in about 10 minutes. So again, you post a load on the load board, a truck driver, dispatcher calls you, and you can literally have a 10-minute call when you're going through everything with them and asking these questions and build the rapport, gather the intel, and get off the phone. And so once I know that information, once I know, okay, this is a carrier that likes the area that we're in, likes the rate, moves the lane, is at least in here a couple times out the week or often, and they've delivered the load successfully. That's number one for me. I'm not adding you to the load, to my carrier network unless you have delivered the load. I don't care what information I've gathered. You can be the nicest Joe Smo, but unless you perform for me and you perform one time fully, I'm not adding you to the network. And so the question that you ask when you're receiving incoming calls, when I receive an incoming call from a carrier, these are questions that I have our brokers ask. And because once they ask it, remember I was telling you, you're going to log in that information in your notes with the carrier. Again, working off of spreadsheets. Once you book that load, put in the notes that, hey, this truck or this driver has access to 2 trucks or 3 trucks or 1 truck. He's in the area often. He's in there actually every day or 4 times out the week, or he lives in this area. So all that intel you gather, you need to log in that data, because once that driver delivers, you're going to go back to that data and you're going to say, okay, cool. Is this a driver based off his performance, and did he service the load correctly, keeping it safe, did everything on time, didn't lie, in any of that? And then you ask the right probing questions to make sure he fits what you need. Then I know if I'm going to add him to my network or not, right? And so my network, when I first got started, was like literally a spreadsheet. It was a spreadsheet. I will put all the states. It will literally have all the states. Really, you're starting out with the states that you're moving, which if you're in Louisiana or Arizona, those are probably going to be your 2 states, right? And so I will start out by putting the states and the carriers that move that load coming out of that state. And they have to have moved it successfully. And so I put it on a spreadsheet. I put my notes on them every time they move a load, and I color code them. White for me was a carrier, just a regular carrier in the network. Yellow is my VIP carriers, meaning those are the ones that have moved the load more than once, and they've done it at they've done a great job moving the load. So those are the people that when I get that load again, I want to immediately reach out and contact them. So I segmented it between regular carriers and what I call my VIPs. And so over time, you should see that list continue to grow and grow and grow. My goal was to get 25 new carriers a week at one point because of the way my customers were sending me freight. And the way I would do it, even if I didn't have freight, like I told you, I would still get on those load boards and make outbound calls to trucks that were available and saying that were available until I got my goal. I needed my network to be so robust that I can get any load from that carrier or customer at any time, and I didn't have to tell them, oh, my driver is busy, or I didn't have to say, oh, I have a driver and I'm posting my loads on Internet Truck Stop and DAT. I wanted to always take the freight because I knew I had the carriers available because I did the work, right? And so once you identify the carrier, you know that they fit your the lane, they fit the mode that you need for a carrier to keep your service at an all-time high. You created a spreadsheet, you're adding them to the spreadsheet. You have to cultivate that relationship. You have to cultivate that relationship. And like I said with a customer, the money's in the follow-ups. I used to have customers that I think, okay, I added them to my network, and I will call them maybe 2 or 3 weeks later for a load. They didn't answer. They didn't even know it was me calling. Versus if I've added any carrier that my team adds now, they have some type of follow-up with them, whether it's via email, phone call, and you don't have to follow with these carriers every month every day, because sometimes you're not going to have freight to give them. So you don't want to keep calling them and say, hey, just, here. I would set up the proper follow-ups for the ones that I knew I was receiving more freight and I received it more consistently. I would have a follow-up with them probably every week or every other day, right? For the ones that I knew, okay, I'm not going to receive this load for a few times. I'm only going to receive this load a few times out the month. I would call them every month. And then there will be some carriers that I know that load that I got, I would never receive it, and I would probably put them over a month or 2 month follow-up. And if I didn't have a load for them, my calls would be simple. Hey, I'm just checking on you. I was thinking about you, just seeing how you're doing. Simple as that. Simple as that. And over time, again, I started to see it went from me just having a list of names to me having actual carriers in the network that responded to me, that like dealing with me, that even if they couldn't move the freight or that lane themselves, they would even refer other carriers to help me out, because they knew if I lost a relationship with the shipper, they lost too. And that's the type of people you want to be in business with. Those are the type of carriers you want to build a relationship with. You want to build around your network. You can rely on, you can predict how they're going to operate so you can give the best service to your customers. And again, that is the name of the game. All right. And so we're moving forward now. So we know how to build our carrier network now. So we started to move the loads, move the freight. We know how to, quote. We know how to move the loads, move the freight. We know how to build a carrier network. So now that's the name of the game, guys. And honestly, that's the blueprint. We are done. Nah, I got you. I got you. I kid a little bit. I'm not going to leave you hanging like that. So now you thinking you moving and grooving now, man. You're bidding on freight with the customer. The customer's starting to send you a little bit more freight now. And you're quoting the freight. You're winning the bids. You got a customer base. You're moving and grooving. You're making some money. You're at, let's just say 5-6 loads a day at $100 margins. And guess what? You are only a few off. You're about 7-8 loads off, 9 loads off to accomplishing your goal. Clap it up, sir. Clap it up, ma'am. You guys are doing excellent. Now it is time to maximize. We're going to talk about maximize those margins. Outside of the carrier network, this right here was another reason why our team was able to double our revenue in business since we started. Is because when you're first getting started, like I was telling you, everything you're doing off of $100 margins, and you really don't know the industry of the game yet. And so you're thinking, I'll give you an example. When I first got started, I had my first customer, and we did pretty good first year. I think we did like $150,000 or something like that. Yeah, we did about 100 and I think like $40,000, maybe 150 year one, right? And year two, I was like, man, I was personally feeling capped out. Mind you, I don't know all the stuff I know now that I'm teaching you guys. And so year two, I started off thinking like, man, I need a big sales team. I need to go hire and recruit more customers. And it was definitely not that. It was not that. It was not that I needed more customers. It was that I needed to squeeze the juice out of the ones I had. And so let me tell you guys, year one to year two, we doubled our revenue. And the kicker was we had the exact same customer base. Mind you, I was just complaining after the first year saying, oh, I need more customers. But when I realized it, I'm like, I'm not maximizing who I have. And so we're going to talk about now maximizing your margins. All right. So, like I was telling you, when you first got started, we're quoting off of $100 margins. Now we understand the market a little bit. And so there's certain factors that come into play. We're talking about market conditions, carrier rates. You got to understand those factors. And so when we talk about that, I want you to understand, the more you move the freight, the customers start to trust you more and more and more and more. And so then they start to actually give you more freight that does not make it out to other brokers. So you know how other brokers, they would send out that load and they would ask for a quote. Now they're no longer sending it to other brokers. They just send you the load directly. You start to get those opportunities now because you've been so consistent, which is why that carrier network is needed. You also can look at a load, and when you're making $100 margins, you see, okay, I can look and say I've made $100, but the calls come in immediate off that load. So now I can squeeze $200 in it. I can say, let me get $200 and build a carrier network that I can make $200 versus the carriers that I have $100 off of. And that's going to be your goal. And you know that. You can look on the load boards. Like I was telling you, I know I'm giving you guys a lot. So all you got to do is retain 1% of this, and you better than anyone else. You're better than I was. So when you're posting the load, if you post a load for $1,300, but you see other brokers and shippers have it posted for maybe $1,100, you got to know, baby, you can drop down that margin. You can drop it down a little bit. You have it posted for 13. No one else has it posted for 13. You're killing everyone. So of course you're going to receive the calls, but hey, you're in the business of making money too, so you need to increase your margin. So you may drop it down to $1,200. Why? Well, I'm $100 better than my competitors, and I make $100 more than what I was making before. I was only making $100 prior. Now I'm making $200 off my margins. Just that little tweak changes the game. And think about it. You didn't need another customer. You didn't need anyone to change that margin. You took the same book of business that you've been working with for months now, and just by tweaking the margins a little bit, now guess what? Your business is doubling. You're 10xing your business because of that, right? And so another way that we're going to work on, that we've worked on and saw increase and maximize our margins, was honing in on your negotiation skills to secure better rates and terms. So negotiating with customers and carriers. When you start understanding the pressure points of a customer and a carrier, for instance, if a customer gives you a load, normally you're hyperventilating because you're ready to make money, so you're just going to give them the quote. But for us now, what we start to do is understand, hey, is it time sensitive? When does it need to be picked up? When I start to see hot loads, when a shipper says this load is hot and they need it picked up ASAP, you'll see how hot it is when you tell them, oh man, I don't have any carriers available. I can't find a truck. Or you need to increase the margin a little bit. We'll see how hot it is. When it's a hot load, remember I was telling you how HGTV, they had a project that they were working on and they needed that motion so delivered like that day. The customer paid us an arm and a leg to be able to move that freight because it was a hotter load. They didn't want to mess up with that customer or with their customer. And so you need to understand that. You need to ask questions to your customer. It's a hot load. When do you need it by? Same thing for carriers. I can negotiate better margins. Normally when you're dealing with carriers, every carrier is going to ask you, can they get more money in the deal? And then remember, if I know what the carrier's problem is and successfully asking them those probing questions, now I can use that in my favor. If I know that they live, again, the Slidell, Louisiana to Mesa, Arizona. If they live in Mesa, Arizona, and they need to get back home, I know I can negotiate a better rate with a carrier that needs to get back home versus a carrier that is coming away from home because they're going to be looking for more money. And so all of these negotiation tactics, you'll learn over time, but you just have to continue to put in the repetition and put in the work. But once you're able to negotiate better rates with the carriers and the customers, let's just say you negotiate $200 better with the customer to give you $200 more, but you negotiate with the carrier to take it for $100 less. That's a $300 increase on top of the $100 you already were making. Do you guys understand? Just that simple, you were able to double, triple, 10x your margins, and you didn't have to get any new customers. You didn't have to get any more freight. You're working smarter, not harder, all right? And so the last we're going to say is just emphasize the importance. I want to emphasize the importance of creating value for the clients or customers and carriers. In order to start maximizing your margins, the value has to increase. And so let's just say you were moving freight before and the customer was giving you the freight. Now you have to be able to give them some market updates. Let them know if the weather's bad. Let them know why their freight's not moving because the rate is low. Sometimes you may have to go back to the carrier or customer and tell them the rate is low. For you to really figure out about your lows and the margins and different things, you need to communicate well with the customer and the carrier. So that's number one, all right? You rolling right now. You're increasing your margins. Man, you doing about $1,200, $1,300 a day. Man, sometimes you may even hit $1,500 a day, but you're just not doing it consistently. So now you're looking for growth. You're looking to scale your business. Scale your business for ultimate growth. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so now to scale your business, remember, we talked about a lot of the Stone Age models. You're doing a lot of cold calling. You're doing everything yourself. You're working off of spreadsheets. Those are all the free methods. You don't have to pay anyone. So now we're going to start scaling the business to take it to the next level. And that's what we did in year 3 to really accomplish the goals that we set out. And so let's talk about it, guys. So there's different operations and areas that we want to identify to streamline and automate certain things. And so when you're doing the business, for instance, we talked about tracking your loads, right? Now you want to start developing certain spreadsheets to be able to properly track your loads. Tracking systems, when you do your check calls to your drivers to see, are they picking up on time? Are they delivering on time? There's tracking systems for that. You can implement tracking systems that will help you not have to make so many calls to the carrier and bother them when they're picking up and delivering your load, allowing you more time to work on the other freight that their customers are giving you, allowing you more time to make extra cold calls outbound. That's how you scale your business again. So they have tracking systems that you can use. Auto emails. And you can set this up however you want, but auto emails to the customer and the carrier. Sending them out reports, sending customers out their tracking their load for them. Again, I talked to you about check calls. These are all little things that now we're going to start looking at the business to streamline and automate certain things. For us, the biggest change for us was tracking the drivers. We had a very sophisticated check call system. We would call the driver probably about 4 or 5 times. We would call them to make sure they're en route to the shipper. We would call them to make sure they were at the shipper on time. We would call them to make sure they're loaded and not overweight. We would, and they had to send us the paperwork that they got loaded with. We would call them to make sure they're on time for delivery. We would call them to make sure they're at the delivery. We would call them to make sure they unloaded and they got the proof of delivery. That's 6 different calls. And so we were able to streamline it a little bit by adding a tracking system. The tracking system literally will allow the truck driver to share their location. So instead of having to call and ask where they're at, just log into the tracking system. Now you can see what's going on. I eliminated 6 calls. And picture, if you're doing, remember, $100 margins, and if you're doing $800 a day at $100 margins, if you do that math, you're talking about 8 times 6, that's a shitload of calls that you're going to make, and it's just you making those calls. And so streamline it. If you can use a tracking system to be able to help you out where you're not having to make all those calls, that is awesome for you. And then auto emails. We send a lot of email updates to our customers on where the load is at. Emails to our carriers. And so if you have auto emails doing that for you based off your tracking system and the software that your broker provided to you, which again, the technology is key from your broker. Once you start to get in the groove and you know the business, now you're going to start looking for those ways to improve. They already have it there for you. It's been under your nose the whole time. You just actually know how to use it and why you need it and why you want to use it. So, then I want to start talking about investing into technology and systems to help support your growth. For me, it was CRMs and KPIs. And so first off, the CRM I told you that I use is Pipedrive. Pipedrive allowed me to go away from the spreadsheet system with tracking my carriers to allow me to put every single carrier and all their data. It will automatically sync the emails between the carriers and the conversations we had into the CRM for me. So I could follow up and build the best relationship with the carriers. I knew immediately who I wanted to call first to move a load, not because they were on my VIP list, but because the CRM basically would tell me the way I had it set up. And so that helped me out a lot. Helped me out organize my customers. Because again, by this time, if you're still making your normal calls throughout the day, you're going to have more than one customer. And so you need to be able to cultivate great relationships. And sometimes you're not going to just be calling them, asking them, hey, what do you have any loads available for today? Do you need any help this morning? You're just going to check in on them. And that allowed the CRM, which is, a customer relationship manager, a client relationship manager. It allows you to manage relationships. And so that investing into that CRM was really huge for us, specifically for our carrier network. And then KPIs, key performance indicators. In the beginning, you're handling everything, you're doing everything. And so that is the last thing you're thinking about. But when you start tracking the KPIs and not just tracking it, I hired a developer from India. And mind you, when I say developer, I know that automatically scares you guys away. where you're thinking you're paying thousands and thousands of dollars for someone to do coding and spreadsheet development. But I literally pay her, I would say maybe $100, $200. I met her off of Fiverr. So again, I met her off of Fiverr. If you guys need, want to know her name and get her contact, her name is Rabia. She's in India. She's awesome. She does all my spreadsheets. And basically, I wanted to start tracking every single trackable number so I can improve. I wanted to track how many incoming calls we were getting, how many outbound calls we were making, what was our conversion ratio, meaning the book loads we had divided by the number of inbound calls to determine our conversion ratio. Again, book loads, the number of loads that you book, divided by the number of outbound calls you make. So if you book 8 loads for the day, and let's just say, you took 8 inbound calls, then that means you have 100% conversion ratio. And so I wanted to track that. I wanted to track the revenue that I was doing, the margins that I was making. So you can track the percentage margin that you make on your loads. I was tracking the carriers. I was tracking the loads that I was booking and how many I booked. I was tracking the dollar amount that I booked those loads for. And I needed everything to kind of tie in itself. So I started to invest into having a developer take my spreadsheets and it automatically spit out numbers. I can type in information on one spreadsheet and then it will automatically spit out numbers to give me stats where I can make real-time decisions and I can actually look and help and start scaling the business. I can look and see, okay, cool. Our conversion ratio is not the highest. That means I got to work on more sales. I got to do better on sales for me. My conversion rates are not that high. I got to sell better. I started to look at my talk time and outbound calls, and I'm like, okay, my talk time is too high. I'm very inefficient on the phones. If I can shorten my talk time, I can get to more loads, get to more carriers, create more relationships. And so what I invested in, again, the CRM and the KPIs were the two main things that I invested in. As far as the technology side, it helped me improve, helped me grow, and helped me scale. All right. Now, we're going to talk about expanding the team. This is kind of one of my favorites. This is like my niche. Expanding your team. So I started expanding the team, but I didn't hire anyone in the U.S. I hired agents in the Philippines. I come from a call center background. Like I said, I'm a call center baby. You might as well tat it across my forehead. I'm a call center baby. And I've always worked with agents in India, Colombia, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, all around the world, right? And I chose the Philippines because the calls was a lot cheaper. I was able to get, labor 40 hours plus a week for someone at $800 a month. Mind you, if you're making, at this point in time, you should be making about anywhere from, $500 a day. And $500 a day basically pays for an entire month of someone working 40 plus hours for you. And so bringing in the virtual assistants and hiring them to be able to handle the back end and sell for me, that was big. And when I say sell, I did the sales to the customers, but they handle the carrier sales. The thing I was telling you about, posting a load, receiving the inbound call, asking the right questions, building a carrier network, they handle all that for me. Even in the back end, talking about sending out the rate cons, which is the agreement with you and the carrier, doing all the check calls, communicating problems with the shipper. They handle that all now for me. That allows me to focus on new customer sales, generating new business development, new systems and processes that I need to put into play. And so bringing in a team, and you don't have to do a big team. You don't have to do a team at all. Some people do what they call the cradle to the grave model. They do it all themselves. They're the sales agent. They're the person who's talking to the customer, talking to the carrier, typing out the agreements and sending that out, doing the check calls, handling the back end, all of that stuff. That is fine. But in order to scale your business to the level you want, you're going to need some help. And we didn't start this business to be a slave to it. We are looking for freedom, financial freedom. And so bringing in the virtual assistants drastically help. Because now when I get a load sent to me, they can quote the load for me. They can post a load for me. They can book the carrier, whether they post it on DAT or calling out to their carrier network. They can send out the agreement. They can do all of that for me. The only thing I'm focused on is acquiring new customers and organizing and managing the entire operation. Now I am no longer working in the business. I am now working on the business. That is something that is so key for you guys. A lot of people, when you first start as an entrepreneur, everyone, and myself included, you're working in the business. You're very much in the business. But when you start removing yourself and playing the replacement game and building a team that can function and you can actually put a different lens on and work on the business, you can actually see things from a different perspective. You see inefficiencies in different areas. You see where you can increase margins in different areas. You spend more time on what's going to affect the bottom line while everyone else is spending time on those small tasks. And so again, expand your team. Don't be scared to bring in someone that you have to manage. And if you're a little bit nervous, I would say start out with a virtual assistant. It's more cost efficient, and you'll have someone who truly wants to do and work for the company versus if you give a virtual assistant, for instance, my agents in the Philippines, whenever I pay them a little bit more. I pay them $1,000 a month plus with bonuses and everything. They love that. They work 40 plus hours and they love it. It benefits them so much because the dollar exchange from the U.S. dollar to peso, I forgot what currency they offer in the Philippines. But when I give them $1,000, oh man, they give me 110%. And so if you are nervous to get started with scaling and building a team, I would say start with someone overseas, maybe in Colombia, the Philippines. If you guys need help finding that agent, I have a virtual assistant company that can connect you with the right person for the job, especially if it's in the brokerage realm, the freight brokerage realm. I definitely got what you need. But it's simply going on Fiverr and finding someone who wants to work from home. And again, that's overseas and that wants to do the job. That's how simple it is. All right. Now we're going to talk about targeting different markets and niches. So right now, again, I don't want you guys to forget. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but I'm giving you guys the blueprint, so I can't hold anything back. I can't try to cut it and cut out quick on you guys. I owe you guys. This is a duty for me, right? And so we're talking about scaling your business, right? So we talked about the areas that you can identify to streamline and automate, the technology and systems. We talked about adding and expanding your team. Now we're going to talk about targeting different markets and niches, which is where I'm at. And so, guys, I'm not going to tell you anything that I'm not actively doing. And so, mind you, everything that I've built thus far literally has been off of physical shit, mulch and soil. And so now we're at the point where we have a good base. Our roots are firmly planted in the ground. We know we're going to make our 250K plus. Now we're experimenting in different markets and different niches. And so now, for instance, in Florida, we're just not known for mulch and soil, but we're mainly known for produce. And so now we're targeting produce. And so produce is in Florida. We may have all of our customers now. We may have started targeting Florida for mulch, but we may be in the Midwest, which is where I'm at. A lot of my customers and a lot of the loads that I move are all based in the Midwest. So now I don't really have a good carrier network or carrier base in Florida. So that's a new market for me. Produce is a new niche. And so now I'm targeting produce because produce gives me the opportunity for higher margins. From what I've heard and what I know, produce is a lot more challenging, comes with a lot more risk, but you have a bigger return. And so I'm going to sprinkle produce on top of my cake because I already got my layer, the bottom layer. Oh, it's already set. Again, mulch and soil. I'm moving raw goods and I got a good relationship. I got a good customer base with those raw goods. So that is flowing. I got my team that's already servicing my customers and we're servicing them to the max. Now we're going to repeat that same process. This time we're targeting produce. And so what do you think we're going to do? Produce manufacturers in Florida on Google. And we're going to go to LinkedIn Sales Navigator and we're going to go through the same methods we talked about earlier. It's a rinse and wash, repeat type of method, guys. And so targeting different markets, different niches. And then the last is going to be just invest in continued education. Whether it's continued education to learn, whether it's a mentorship or just personal development. And it can be a plethora of education that you can invest in. It doesn't just have to be geared towards being a freight broker or a freight agent. Again, you need negotiation skills, sales skills, closing skills, follow-up skills, a part of being the broker is you're also helping improve the customer supply chain. And so that may be, you actually making that personal visit when the time comes and actually helping them get more efficient with their shipping. I remember one of my mentors, actually not one, but my mentor in that helps me out in the freight. He was telling me about a customer that some of the other mentees, they got locally. It was a customer that they had locally, and the customer wanted to see them in person. And when they went there in person, it wasn't just about give me a quote for moving this freight. It was more than that. When my mentor saw the operations, he saw inefficiencies where shipping and loading comes through the same dock or door, right? Versus if you split it up and have shipping segmented here or receiving segmented here and getting loaded here, it doesn't create a big traffic jam. People can get in and get out, and it's more efficient. Those are certain things that when you start studying and getting more education to kind of help and add more value in the marketplace. And remember, I'm a firm believer. Once you add more value in the marketplace, the dollars follow. And so you need to invest in continuing education or some type of mentorship or just personal development in yourself. That's the only way you're going to continue to get better. There always is going to be another shipper that comes in and underbids you, underquotes you. But another another broker. There's always going to be another broker that can move the lane better than you or can move it for less money than you. But if your value just isn't on the dollar amount, it's the consistency, the communication, the intangibles. You may be someone who buys the staff lunch. Those are all little things that you add, and by seeking knowledge to get better, ways to get better and develop, that is when the real growth comes. And guys, again, I want to constantly remind you, everything that I'm going over with you now, this is the journey. Once you reach that goal of 250, it's something like, you check it off the box and now on to the next. Where you really get the most benefit is from the growth over the time that you're learning, the journey. You gain the skill, the knowledge. You felt enough where now you are mastering your craft. That is how you just don't make $250,000 plus. You continuously do that year in and year out, and you just don't make it. You add to it 300, 400, 500, 600. And if you continuously do the methods that I just told you guys, I guarantee you, you're going to start off better than I was. You guys are already starting off better than I was now. And I had a mentor. And these are things that I just had to learn over time. And so now, if you guys can skip the line again, picture it. You're at Disney. I'm in Orlando, so I'm going to use Disney. You're in Disney and you're in the line, right? But then you see that one couple, that one family, they're walking right past you on the other side. They're happy. You sitting there hot and sweaty. You know why? They just paid for the fast pass. They just skipped the line. Baby, if you take this podcast, study this knowledge, message me with more questions, hire a mentor, whether it's me or whoever it is, pay for a course, whatever the case may be, guys, that is your version of skipping the line. All right? Don't be that hot, sweaty guy waiting for an hour just to ride that ride once. Skip the line. Ride that ride as many times as you want. All right? So let's recap. Let's recap a little bit. So we talked about it. So what we talked about, we set our goals, $250,000. We found our brokerage. You guys know what we're looking for the brokerage. And if not, we're going to talk about it again. We're talking about non-compete, commission structure, compensation, credit score of 95 or higher, 2 years in business or more, the technology and tools. I need TMSs. I need the load boards, rate comparison software. We're talking about finding our customers. We're going to target first raw goods. Starting out raw goods, we're going to do $100 margins on those raw goods. We're going to use Google and LinkedIn Sales Navigator to be able to find those leads. The way we're going to market is cold calls, emails, and direct messages. We talked about what we're going to say on the phone, how to follow up, quoting the freight, moving the freight, the admin / collections department after you've got a carrier to commit to moving your load. We talked about building the network, how to find the carriers, what to say, what to ask them to know if they're a carrier that you want to add to your network, and then continuously cultivating that relationship. We talked about maximizing your margins. Now that you've done it for a while, how to maximize your margins, how to find inefficiencies that you can use to get more money, how to negotiate better. and build better relations with both the clients and the carriers. And then lastly, we talked about scaling the business. We talked about the technology, again, working on the business to look and find those inefficiencies and create streamlined automations to be able to be more efficient, targeting new markets and new niches, expanding your team. We talked about continued education, mentorship, all of that, guys. That's the blueprint for you to have the success, which is $250,000 plus. All right. Guys, I want you guys to take action like today. When you guys hear this podcast, I want you guys to create your goals and start getting a list of brokerages that you want to call and start calling them immediately and vetting them. Get started today. Do not procrastinate. Don't have information overload you to listen to a 2.5 hour podcast. Now you're going to get back and what are you going to do? You're going to start playing video games and you're going to say, oh, I'll get started next week. No, take action today. If you still need help, because obviously there's still a lot more I want to tell you guys and talk to you guys about. Tried to squeeze it in 2 hours, but I got a lot more game. Guys, contact me. Reach out. I'm doing coaching calls for you guys. We're starting a mentorship program that I'm going to be able to give you guys all this knowledge plus more. You'll have access to me. You can be able to see my facilities. You can hear what my team is saying. I'll give you calls and a lot of different things you guys can use to win. I want you to reach out to me and start taking action today. All right. And I just want to kind of, again, reinforce, it's very important. Out of all this, everything that I'm telling you, it means nothing if you do not have the dedication and perseverance to be able to push through and stay focused to your goal. I'm going to give you a perfect example. So before this brokerage, I have operated about 3 other businesses that I have started and I just stopped. And it's because I didn't have the dedication. I wasn't consistent enough in those industries. I will open up a business and I will close a business. And I realized I needed to stick things out through the good and the bad. And when I told you, first starting out, that is hell. You guys are literally making 50 plus cold calls a day for the next 60 to 90 days trying to land a shipper and you have not made not one dime. So what if I told you have to make calls for 1 year and you won't make not one dime, but after that 1 year, you're automatically going to start making $2 million. Would you guys do it? Hell yeah, you would, right? But what if you didn't have that certainty and you did not know and you just had to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing? That's what this is about. I am living proof that the information that I'm telling you will lead you to the promised land, to what you're looking to make, which right now we're talking about $250,000. But I'm living proof of this. All this blueprint right now is my blueprint. You talk to other brokers, they're going to give you another blueprint. This is my blueprint. And if you do this correctly, I guarantee you guys, you're going to reach your goal of financial success, financial freedom. All right. And so stay committed to the journey. Focus on the journey and the process rather than the end goal, guys. The journey of the process gives you the skill, allows you to grow into what you or who you need to become. Again, the journey, the process, that is the biggest part, because it allows you to grow into who you need to become to make $250,000. Right now, you're not that person right now. But with constant repetition, constant failing forward, constant analyzing, looking yourself in the mirror, repetition, that is the person that's going to develop into that person who can acquire $250,000. All right. Guys, I want to invite you again. If you have not already, like, subscribe to the podcast, the Risk Takers Only podcast. We're dropping a monthly podcast now, and I got a plethora of content. If you visit my Instagram too, Mike Upshire, at Mike Upshire. Guys, this is so much knowledge that we're giving out. Man, I'm just so I'm so happy because of where I'm at, that I know right now I can give out this knowledge, and I guarantee you no one's going to knock me off my throne, because I'm going to consistently do this day in and day out. Even when we're hitting 5 mil, 6 mil, it's going to be the same thing, just different niches, more skill, more knowledge. All right. So I encourage you guys, if you like what you heard today, please like, subscribe, comment. And I just want to leave you with this, guys. Embrace the discomfort of uncertainty. So a lot of you guys, when you first start out, it's scary because you hear me telling you what you could make, but it's not guaranteed. So it's uncertain. So I want you to embrace the discomfort of uncertainty, because it's a stepping stone to greatness. Take that leap of faith towards your goals and dreams. With risk lies boundless potentials for success. Your future success, wins, and accomplishments, they await you at the other side of fear. And it's on you to seize it. It's Mike Upshire, baby, the Risk Takers Only Podcast. I'm out of here.